Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Jim Cornette Experience. Today, Danhausen finally cursed himself. Grayson Waller is my new favorite wrestler. An old friend of ours is begging for a job again. And we're going to look at the Dark Side of the Ring episode on the Big Boss Man. And joining me for all this and more, Hawaiian Brian, the podcasting lion, the king of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network, Mr. Co-host to you. I believe he was cursing Raw. Be great, Brian Last, everybody.
Aloha, Jim. A pleasure to be here once again. Nice to see that Danhausen tried to one-up professional wrestling's favorite organist, and it didn't work. People called it out. They said he's no Brian Last.
I don't know if he was even playing as good as the Phantom of the Opera. Although it was definitely a scary situation, but
that's one of the things that people don't talk about often with the Phantom of the Opera. I mean, just brutal man, did bad things, but really a fantastic musician.
He was. He had plenty of time to practice down there in the bowels of the Paris Opera House. What else are you going to do down there? You barbecue rats and you play the organ. I'm sure he did a lot of organ playing down there all alone for all those years.
Barbecue rats and playing the organ, the upcoming biography of Terry Taylor. Stay tuned wherever you find your favorite podcasts.
Anyway, I'm trying to get comfortable here some way or another. My chair is run down too low, Brian. I'm in my normal chair, and it's cranked up as far as I can get it to go, but I am 2 inches lower than normal on my desk here where the microphone is placed to guide my notes. I'm trying to look at an angle. I feel odd. I feel like I'm sitting in a hole. Down in a hole. Thank you, Stuart from Northampton, UK. Guess what he did?
He pulled you out of your hole?
No, he sent the boys, Alfred Puddensworth and Nature Boy Buddy Cornette. He sent them from some British chew sticks and dog toys. And you
better have those tested.
Well, no, they're high quality because the Brits, they put everything right there on the label where you can say, do you know a lot of our food is not allowed to be served? I found this out in the United Kingdom because it doesn't meet their parameters for how much actual real food is in it versus how many chemicals and additives and preservatives and shit. Our food is not even street legal over there, some of it. But some of these chew sticks, they're made out of real wood. And they're shaped like little tree trunks and everything. And the boys have just loved them to death, along with everything else in the world that they chew on. So I wanted to thank Stuart for that. Why would you downplay the quality of the British dog toy?
I've sent you some wood from over here in the forest. Give it to your dogs. Get out of here. What is this? They can eat wood? It's wood?
Well, it's made from real wood. It's a dog toy with a label on it, and it's commercially sold, but it's made from real wood so that they don't have to worry about eating any additives.
Was that a worry? Was that a worry of yours, the additives that they're consuming?
Well, you never know what type of substances some of these things these days may have in them, and we have no goddamn oversight anymore thanks to our criminal government over our food or the things we're consuming. Measles are back.
Did you see Robert F. Kennedy?
Explosive diarrhea. Go ahead.
Robert F. Kennedy launched a cooking show?
For what? Possum and roadkill?
Yeah, I don't know, but they had clips of it on the news when it was past the point of the real news, and I had it on mute, and I was doing something else, and I just looked over. And then on another station later on that night, same thing. Robert F. Kennedy cooking. And he doesn't look like he wants to be there.
He looks like he's been cooked.
Yeah.
He looks like he's literally been, what do they call that process? Desiccated. He's a desiccated human being.
It looks like someone put him in the microwave and just pulled him out at the last second.
But here is my Dalmatian foie gras. Anyhow, so we got some emails from some of the cult members I wanted to recognize. First of all, Jeremy is from Hardinsburg, Kentucky. And he sent me a picture of me and his best friend, Brian Kennerson. Be kin to most, but just Kennerson to him. And it was in Lexington, and I'm thinking, Well, Jeremy says it was 2014 over in Lexington, Kentucky. I'm thinking it was either Scarefest or probably the Lexington Comic Con. But anyway, point being, unfortunately, Brian passed away a couple of years ago, 2022, to bone cancer. And he had been going through treatments for the marrow and everything. And then finally, that was not fruitful. And Jeremy just had come across the picture and wanted to thank me for doing it. But also, I thought we would recognize, even though it's late, we'd recognize B. Ken. And Jeremy, we're sorry for your loss. And, you know, that's whenever in any other line of work, Brian, do people send pictures of friends or family members that have passed away along with somebody to that person and say, "Oh, thank you for taking this picture"?
I don't know.
It's just it's still odd to me that they would be thanking me for when that has happened. Do you see what I'm saying? And badly?
Yes, very badly.
Yes. Okay. I'm glad you can agree with that. Another email we got, Johnny, and he doesn't say where he's from, but Johnny H. And unfortunately, Mr. Lulu, his cat of 13 years, passed away. This is just like a week ago. This just came in, and he goes into detail on his medical issues, which I don't want to go through at this point, not Johnny's, but Mr. Lulu's. But Johnny said, "I used to be a severe shithead and an alcoholic, and 10 years ago, I stopped drinking and turned my life around for that cat. He was my best buddy and my smile at the end of every shitty day. And he deserves to have everybody know him and his name for saving my life." So Mr. Lulu will not be forgotten now that he's been memorialized on tape or whatever what do you call it now that we put audio on when we can't say tape anymore?
I don't know.
Do you have any idea?
I don't know if there's a specific term for that. No.
Well, why don't we coin one? What are we putting this on? What is it being recorded on?
Digitally being recorded. It's not digital.
Well, we're
tape.
putting it on digital. It's being digitaled.
Digitized. Well,
no, that has a different meaning. See, it's like redacted when you digitize something. So that this is digitaling now.
Oh, I'm going to choose to redact it. Let's redact it all.
Okay, should we redact the whole program we've done so far and start over? Let's go to Nicholas's email. He's got a happy, cheerful story to tell us. "Hi, I'm in the hospital after a motorcycle wreck on the 20th. I have a brain bleed and several broken limbs. Jesus. I'll be listening to your podcast now and again until the new one comes out."
New what?
The new podcast.
Oh, okay. I thought he meant a new limb.
No, they're not taking anything out of him. They're just trying to patch up the shit that's there. He said, because that's what he does. He listens to our podcast and he listens to it over and over until the next one comes out, and then he repeats the procedure. You know what? That's our new t-shirt. Come, listen, over and over, repeat, sleep, I don't know. Anyway, Nicholas continues to say he listens to this over and over, especially when he's on the treadmill or elliptical working out. You've got a fucking brain bleed and several broken limbs. How and why are you working out on a fucking treadmill? Is he hopping on one leg? Is he crawling on his belly like a reptile? What the? I don't have a brain bleed or any broken limbs, and I don't think I could get on a treadmill. Or what is the elliptical? Is that like the tilt-a-whirl, Brian? It takes you round and round.
Well, it doesn't take you around and around. It takes your
like
legs.
A record, baby, right round, round, round.
It's like being able to run without the impact of actually running. So your legs go around in a running motion, but you're not actually.
Your legs go right round, baby, right round.
I hate that fucking song.
Round and round. What comes around goes around. I'll tell you what. But anyway,
how come
Nicholas
no
says,
one ever emails him like, "Hey, I won the lotto. I listen to you every day. Here's
well,
your
no,
portion."
if they won the lottery, the last thing they're going to be is listening to us. Miserable people listen to us to take their mind off their misery. If you're happy, you're out there just frolicking in the fucking daisies. Listen here. Nicholas says, if you guys could send positive vibes my way, it'd be greatly appreciated in the hopes that I can heal quickly and with good health. And much love to the puppies. Well, much love to you, Nicholas, and your broken limbs and bleeding brain.
We send you positive vibes. We hope you win the lotto and send us half the winnings.
Well, but here's the thing: is he going to want to share in the losses? I sat and watched a lady the other day in line at a convenience store. Didn't look like she had, as Mama Cornette would say, a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. Spent $50 on like lottery tickets. I've never bought a lottery ticket in my life. I have no idea how you do it, even because she's asked, "Oh, I want 4 of the Blue Toes and 6 of the Ramacans and there's some ding dongs." I don't know what the fuck she's saying. And they're picking out all these different tickets. And she could have given me the $50. I would have given her a hearty handshake and she would have had something. Phil from Bethel Ridge, Kentucky. I want to mention him because I recognize Phil. I recognized your name. You've been a customer at Cornette's Collectibles. And he sent this to both of us, Brian. And he had started listening to our shows back in 2017 because Smoky Mountain Wrestling was his introduction to wrestling when he and his dad used to watch on Saturday mornings. And then, unfortunately, his youngest sister passed away in 2016. She was only like 17 years old. And he was finding stuff, take his mind off things, and started listening to our show. And now he has become a devotee, and he said, "Brian, you are the best co-host in podcasting." And he says, "You and Jim are the Lance and Dave of today." So that's pretty daggum heavy stuff.
He could have said you're the Dave and Corey of today.
He could have said that, but he wouldn't have got his email read on the fucking air had he done that.
Well, that would have made you Dave. I think that's still acceptable.
Well, yeah, but I wouldn't want to bury you. All right there, partner.
We got a big one Monday.
You know what? Corey Macklin, and bless him, he's passed away. He had a car wreck years ago. And I'm not trying to, but here's the thing. I would say this to his face, is that he didn't just imitate Lance Russell because he was doing Lance. Instead of a 70-year-old, grandfatherly type white guy, he was a 30-something-year-old black guy. So the voice didn't match, but he was doing Lance Russell. And that's why he had that, "Well, and that's ridiculous." But the thing is that it consumed him. The point I was going to make, it consumed him to the point where he talked like that in real life, not when he was on the air. Just he would. When you were talking to him, it was like you're talking to a fucking guy trying to do a Lance Russell impression. And it's just funny, but he didn't realize, I don't think he was doing it a lot of times.
What do you think?
Anyhow.
What do you think Lance thought when he meets him? "Hey, Corey, how are you?" "Hey, Lance."
Well, no, he knew because, I mean, it's not like that was the first time that anybody, Randy Hales had quite a bit of Lanceisms or Lanceosity or whatever in the way he accented things and statements he made. Everybody did that grew up watching him. So, I mean, Lance was, I'm sure, very flattered, if not necessarily with the execution as with the thought and the sentiment behind it. And real quick, also, Brian, you're going to want to know about this because we may have to work something out off air here or whatever. But hey, Jim and Brian, my name is Brandon. I'm from good old Manchester, Kentucky. I'm a FedEx driver around these parts, and I'm constantly listening to you guys while I'm out making my deliveries. And a few days ago, I was listening to one of the older Experience episodes from December 8, 2021, where Jim proposed a $500 bet with you, claiming that Bron Breakker would be the WWE champion in the next 30 months. And I remember that now because that's the first time we saw him. I said, well, here is the future of the business. But as Brandon goes on, sadly, clearly Jim has lost that bet by 2+ years. So my question is, when will Jim man up and pay off? It was supposed to be $500 to the winner's choice of charity. So you can send me your recommendation off the air. I'm a man of my word.
I don't mind saying it publicly so other people will support the cause. The Arcadian Vanguard Hanukkah Pizza Fund.
All right now.
Does its very best to supply pizza to the last family for 8 nights in a row.
I thought that they had their license pulled due to well, it was due to the explosive diarrhea cyclosporiasis outbreak.
There's no known connection, and they've just gone underground. They haven't disappeared, but they are back, and we are back, and thank you for remembering that. If anyone else remembers any other times that Jim promised me money on the air, please write in. But, it does raise a bigger question. Coming off Unreal and seeing a lot of Bron Breakker and knowing about the injuries and knowing how the booking's been, you probably should have won that bet. They probably should have made him hotter coming out of the gate, maybe.
Well, actually, no.
You don't think so?
I tell you what, now that I've had the it was probably about to happen, right? So December 2021 to 2025, and they were building this thing when he got hurt.
It's close, yeah.
It was 4 years instead of 2.5, but I was still lost. But with hindsight, having seen his progression and where he was a couple of years ago versus now, I think because they did that with The Rock, partly because they had to. There was competition at the time, and it was just everything was on hyper speed. But now they don't have meaningful competition. Let's just fucking face it. Sorry, to all the AEW fans, but they haven't needed to rush him. And I think he was in a better spot at the end of last year to be put in that position than he was 4 years ago. So
he was in a better spot then than he feels now. Like, that's the problem, I think, is that it's happening in a period of time where he just kind of feels not lost, but in the middle of things that don't matter.
Well, but unfortunately, he got hurt. It changed the plans. All the other plans started being, less interesting. That's not his fault, but there is still an opportunity for him. He's a better performer and more ready now than even if he might not be as hot as he's ever been. So they're still going to do it. And it's not like he won't be able to take even better advantage of it when it happens. So I was wrong. Somebody better not goddamn loop that and set it to music.
Pay up. Loop that.
Well, hey, how about fuck that? Fuck that, suck this. How about that over there?
Don't loop that.
Don't loop. Fuck that, redact. Suck this. That's my new single.
Jace, redact that.
My new single on the Arcadian Vanguard label is going to be "Fuck That, Suck This." And one more. This is not an email.
Sounds like the Gigi Allen reunion concert. What the fuck kind of song title is that? Suck my ass. It smells.
There would probably be "Eat This" in there somewhere. Also, but this is not an email, Brian, and it will move along with programming. But it's an order to Cornette's Collectibles, which, by the way, exists at jimcornette.com, where you can find the finest in Cornette-related merchandise, action figures, T-shirts, some of the least expensive autographed items in the wrestling industry, because I deal in bulk and volume. I'm bulky and I take up a lot of volume, and I don't try to just squeeze the customer for every single penny. And anyway, but at jimcornette.com, I got an order for my new, not new anymore, from last October. If you don't have it, it's new to you. best-selling book, Heroes and Friends. And the inscription they wanted on the autograph was, "Sorry I cost you all that money." And sometimes people want personalizations that it doesn't quite make sense if it's written that way coming from me, or I need more information to grasp what I'm doing. So I had Hotchkiss Featherbottom inquire on who did I cost money, or I cost you, or the money for buying the book, or what's going on with this, right? And the guy wrote back as Kevin from Columbus, Ohio, and he said the backstory to that, he's getting the book for a friend. And he said the last time that Jim was at the Charlotte Wrestling Fan Fest, the reunion they have down there, which is, I guess, 2019, my friend was at the ATM as Jim walked by. He saw Jim and got so starstruck, he left a couple of $100 in the ATM machine, never to be found.
Oh, my God.
So when he turned around and started talking to me and engaged me in ribald conversation, he walked off so pleased. So he paid $200 to talk to me for like 2 minutes in the hallway. So I don't know what the friend's name is, but I'd like to say that I'm not going to send you the $200 back, but it was a good story. So now at least you've been memorialized as what a dumb fuck you are, but we don't know your name, so you're still safe. The masked dumb fuck.
It's good to hear at this late date you're still doing the ATM talk money theft thing. I thought you had given that up.
Well,
I'm going to start a conversation with that guy at the ATM. Let me grab his money.
A guy's got to make a living, Brian, and the attendance was down that year. That Dick Murdoch used to walk by payphones back in the day when such a thing existed, and for fun to stick his fucking fingers into coin returns to see if anybody left their quarter.
Quarter was a big deal back then.
Well, yeah, a quarter don't buy what it used to. Why, for a quarter in the old days, you could get a night's lodging up back in the days of the Alaskan gold rush. You got a night's lodging, a good hot cup of porridge, and a whore for 25 cents.
Well, that was your 2 cents.
Well, now let's talk about my new favorite wrestler, Brian. You want to? You want to talk about my new favorite wrestler, a guy I'm going to at least have to make some effort to start watching him. If he keeps this level of intensity and they keep letting him do these things like this, Grayson Waller is now my new favorite wrestler. And
I think you literally wish this guy would leave the business. I think you wished injury.
Oh, I had a Grayson Waller rule. I wouldn't watch anything he was involved with. I thought he poisoned my boy Theory. He's poisoned my boy.
A few times I told you I watched those segments and he did all right. You shot me down.
I shit upon you. I flung feces in your facial fucking features. He looked ridiculous in his outfit. He had a stupid haircut. He had a fucking fleshy, pale physique, and he was unintimidating in every way, and he was in stupid angles, doing stupid things, and saying equally stupid material. And he apologized for all of that. This on NXT this past week, and obviously, this was based on the CM Punk pipe bomb promo. I mean, down to the cutting the mic at the end. It didn't make as much ripple, buzz, whatever the kids say, as the pipe bomb punk promo did, because obviously the viewership is not what it was when that 2011 when that happened, and it's on NXT and it's a different world. And it's also been, there was a precedent for this, but the material was very good, but the delivery was fantastic. And what's more, the emotion from this guy was fantastic. which we'll talk about. The changes that he's made, which we'll talk about, are fantastic because it shows he's fucking serious. So I when I was watching it, I started trying to jot down, some inflammatory lines, and then I just gave up and I just watched it because I couldn't. A court stenographer couldn't have fucking taken this down and do it justice, and you ought to see it. So everybody should look for it on YouTube or wherever it lives. But he was obviously, this was in the same vein backstage, I bet you, as the Punk Pipe Bomb promo was, as well as on camera, because you could tell that he's talked to Shawn Michaels and he's vented his frustrations. And you can also tell that Michaels, if not sympathizes, identifies, he feels his pain. And he's, at first when he comes out, apparently he's just showed up the last week or so in NXT. But he is not wearing clown clothes. He's in a black outfit. It was a warm-up tracksuit, whatever the fuck it was, but he looked like a goddamn normal human being, athlete. He's got a different haircut that doesn't look so fucking Leave It to Beaverish. He's got a tan. He even mentioned it as he opened his jacket. He's got abs. He's worked on his body. He's changed that fucking look. And his whole promo began with again, I'm not going to quote lines. He did a great fucking job. There's no way that, obviously, that was written for him or that he memorized it. He felt it. It was the way he felt, and he was allowed, within certain parameters, to go out there and say it. And I'm going to get to the point where Shawn Michaels obviously endorses some of his thoughts behind the scenes as well. But he came out and he had called attention to how he was brought to the main roster and treated like a joke from day one, and was in some of the made to look silly and to say stupid things, put in silly scenarios, however he phrased it. Not allowed to be who he wanted to be. Doing shitty fucking, basically just told people, no, they booked me like goddamn Bozo the Clown. And then he talked about then he finally got hurt and what he's done since that time. He called attention to changes he's made and the reigniting the passion. He was doing a variety of inside references and knocks and etc. that it used to be the smart fans will get it, but now all the fans are smart fans to these things because he didn't go so granularly inside baseball that he lost everybody. He stuck to the main parts of the things that almost every fan would fucking acknowledge, especially if they've seen Unreal. They know Shawn is the guy behind the scenes. They know that they've called Oba and Trick and these other guys up from NXT and they're on the main Raw. You see what I'm saying? The Marty Jannetty of the team is who he was talking about, Theory, right?
That's exactly who he was talking about.
Yeah. And I'm beginning to think that, maybe Theory just has the IQ of a fucking eggplant. Because or just does something to grate on people.
Liberty.
He's just the phenomenal athlete to look at him, but boy, howdy. Anyway, so he's pumping his fucking promos, what I'm trying to say. And and then he starts talking about the current NXT roster. And he blitzkrieged the goddamn male roster. He said, the girls are lapping you. 10% of this roster is ready and they're all women. This NXT title has been open for the taking and none of you have stepped up. That's Shawn Michaels probably getting in a pointed comment or two through him. And also because he probably sees that this Waller guy has come back with some fire and wants to be good and wants to reinvent himself, wants to overcome whyever the fuck it was that he was doing the things that he obviously didn't want to be doing. Whyever they thought that was good to present this guy like that. So at any rate, and he's challenging the champion, Tony D'Angelo, who's been there so long, that'll make it the D'Angelo position in NXT because he's been there since the fucking start, hadn't he? And it was a wonderful delivery, and he had oomph, and he didn't let the people throw him off, and he just vented his spleen. And again, there, he couldn't go out there and say, "Oh, fuckity McFuck," and he wasn't. He knocked his. I heard there was some controversy that he had said a couple of inflammatory comments toward TNA. Well, who gives a shit? And I know they have a working relationship, but this is the people in TNA ought to realize this is a guy doing some fucking business. But at the same time, what was it he said, that the top guy in TNA is like the nicest guy in prison, if I was saying it, or something derogatory like that. But because Santana just came in to NXT and under whatever name he's got now.
Cruz Montana.
No, that's a state PR slogan.
No, that's his new name. He went from Santana to Montana.
Well, and a special referee Dantana. But anyway, he's setting up an opponent for himself. He wasn't just trying to stick a dagger in the heart of the upstart TNA company as a whole, but nevertheless, brilliant. He's made the effort. What do I say all the time with these fucking guys? With Daniel Garcia looks like the same mope-faced fucking unimpressive shit that he did 3 years ago. And they never try to better themselves. He obviously couldn't do anything about the way he was being booked at that period of time. But when he was given the break, he comes back with his hair transformed, his outlook changed, his physique changed, he's ready to cut a promo. And he said, I've reminded myself, or whoever it is that reminded him, who Grayson Waller really is. The name still sounds like a bucket of pig slop, but maybe we'll get there. But at least he's doing something to show some goddamn effort. Your thoughts, young man?
First of all, I'm surprised that you took to this the way you did. It's nice to see, nice to hear. I've liked Waller at times. I've really not liked his stuff at times. I think a lot of it is what was written for him and what he was told to do. I think they like the fact that he was able to perform their stuff, which doesn't mean their stuff is good. He's not the first guy to clearly be frustrated and given a mic and said, go out there and just let people know what you think. It would probably help if more people did that and spoke like that. Not necessarily going off of the company or anything, but just go talk.
Yes, and I mean, and there's you can't be doing the I'm going to vent my real thoughts promo with everybody all the time, or then it becomes like everything else. It doesn't mean anything anymore because everybody does it. But if this had been, I will draw one parallel and then we'll move along. But if this had been in AEW television or TNA television or any of the televisions where the guys are so indie-minded and concentrating on creating characters and dramatic stories rather than digging into their goddamn soul and fucking venting like this guy did, they would have memorized it. The language, but it would have been a lot more florid. They would have gone way farther inside baseball, and it would have felt like forever. And blah. But because this guy, you could tell, and it wasn't, you didn't have to be smart to the business to tell that he had been pissed off, but you believed it because the delivery was excellent and he had the passion and the emotion And still he not only got all those lines out and all those elbows into ribs and various things, he did a smooth job of it and didn't go too far to where somebody, it would have been out of sanction. That's not easy. And he talked for 5 or 6, 7, 8 minutes, whatever the fuck it was. It's not that goddamn easy. And he did that. The performance is what put it over for me, that he showed that he could do that. If he can do that, he can do some other good shit.
If he could do that, should it be, or does it need to be in NXT? Could it have been on Raw or SmackDown?
I'm just going to vamp for a second until I decide for myself, because he needed to go away from the television programs that he had been on for people to forget the shit that he obviously didn't want to be doing in the first place. And I don't think that he could have come back in the shows with just interrupting all the programming that they're doing now. He'd come back to whichever show he left on the main roster and do this, because I think this is almost part of, if he's going to be successful, this is a step he needs to take before the main roster so they have the package. You wonder what happened to Grayson Waller, who was a big star on SmackDown, even though he looked like shit and everybody laughed at him. Well, he was hurt and he went away, but boy, howdy, about however many months ago on NXT, he came back and said shit like this. Boom. And then he went out and won the NXT title like this. Boom. And then he's defended against so-and-so and such. And now, boy, howdy, he says he's ready to come back and kick some people's ass from one side of the ring to the other right here on SmackDown, Raw, fill in the blank. That's part of if he's going to get a chance and he's going to be able to be himself and get over that way, that's part of the story that they can tell. This guy went out and reinvented himself and threw off the chains of bad booking, or however the fuck they ain't gonna say it like that, but you know what I mean. So I don't think he should have. I think this is the first step in the story that they hopefully will tell, but not just like, I'm back, I'm over, one good promo. But bravo, change your fucking name, Grayson. Be anything else, but not that.
It may not be his option.
Well, you know what? He should come up with a good nickname. Maybe he could be T-Bone. Hey, T-Bone. Or Coco.
You've been watching Seinfeld again, I see.
Seinfeld fans in the... All right. Anyway, but now that was a good thing that happened this last week under the TKO WWE umbrella, but there was something that, unfortunately, I'm sure the viewership was even wider for, that was not as positive for a character or characters, as they say. Did Danhausen fuck up and point in the mirror and curse himself last week on Raw, Brian? This wasn't just us. Because people say, oh, they don't like anything. But no, people that like things didn't like this. There's people that don't like anything anymore because of this, isn't there?
This was one of the worst things I've ever seen in wrestling, on wrestling TV. You could blame Danhausen and the use of Danhausen and all the accessory performers of Danhausen. Joe Hendry deserves plenty of blame too. I don't think I want to see Joe Hendry ever again. And then we're not even getting to, we're just talking about the atrociousness and the length, and it seemed like an hour of the segment.
I timed it. I'm going to tell you the time here shortly, but I timed it.
But then there's a whole separate part of it where they have some fucking boxer who I don't even know.
Was that what he was? I was going to ask you because I didn't have time to look him up.
Yeah, he's fighting for Zuffa Boxing.
I thought he was a goddamn Hispanic rap star or something.
He's part of the flywheel.
Oh,
so they get this guy involved in this angle. And once again, we have an outside, I don't care that he's an athlete, an outside person to wrestling beating up the wrestlers again. We just had the Knicks. We had Karl Anthony Towns choke slamming the Judgment Day through fucking tables. And now
now to be fair, he did strike from behind with a guitar, which that's another reason I thought he was a fucking musician. He picked up the guitar and started strumming it. We're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, and he's not. We'll get into the boxer in a little bit. Yes.
Yes. Well, I've never seen him wrestle, but I've seen his box. Anyway, I've got to say this at the outset because you said I don't ever want to see Joe Hendry again, and did Danhausen curse himself? But I'm not blaming the talent in this situation. Because it's like if you tell somebody the Poseidon is sinking, here's a teacup, bail it out. They had nothing to work with. There was no way this was ever going to be good. Or that it was going to ever get over with the audience in the arena or the audience at home, or potentially, I don't know what I'm afraid the audience was the writer's room because they just kept tickling themselves over and over until it spiraled out of control like the green slime on Stephen King and Creepshow.
This is another one of those times where it felt like the writer's room was AI, but yeah.
Well, here's the thing. And I bet you Joe Hendry wrote that song. And as a catchy little Danhausen ditty that could have been presented in a less offensive way and more briefly and not in the middle of the goddamn whole show, right in the middle of the ring. Song wasn't bad. The idea of Joe Hendry singing, that's what got him over. Danhausen playing a spooky organ. The pieces of some of the pieces of this in a backstage or pre-tape or on location, whatever the fuck, for a minute, two, they're watching it on the screen, and then here we go. Some of these things would have worked, but this was way fucking out of control and over the top. And that therein lies the problem. The point is, I feel bad for the talent because they knew that this thing was hurting people's feelings. They opened on them in the ring with Joe Hendry in the spotlight singing or strumming the guitar and is starting to sing a song, and then Danhausen is on the other side of the ring in front of an organ, and more on his organ in a moment. And they start singing like a duet ballad, the slow, like melodic. And Hendry was really strumming, but Danhausen is obviously, not only is he not really playing the organ, as we will later find out, it's not a fucking organ. It's a goddamn gimmick. But then if they may have done a minute and a half there, I think people would have applauded and they could have all left smiling. But then they come out front and the beat picks up and the dance routine. And and then here come the three mini Danhausens are back again that we've seen in the past. And they're all dancing and clapping while they're singing this song, I Believe You Are Cursed. And again, Hendry writes witty little songs, and he had a couple of stanzas or verses. You're the music guy, Brian. What is that part before you go into the chorus? I believe you are cursed.
I believe in this case it was shit. It was shit.
Well, it was a shitty one of those things. Yeah. And the fans, while all the dancing and clapping was going on, the fans were sitting and staring. You could literally see on the hard camera shot, there would be like three people half-heartedly clapping like, okay, let's see where this is going. They're still with it. And then here come down the entranceway. I believe if there weren't 10, there were 12. What were they? The LA Lakers dancing girl cheerleader people, whatever they call them now? They had the LA outfits on, and
there were a lot of them. There were a whole lot of them for this segment. Think of how many
and they
people.
come out. Well, when they got Danhausen masks in front of them as they come down the aisle, and they split off and they go to the front of the ring, the hard camera side, and they reveal themselves. The Danhausen masks are dropped, and then they go into a dance routine to the beat of this. They went into another chorus after there was a goddamn melodic interbreak. And then another chorus of "I believe you are cursed." And their dancing, in some cases, looked like Elaine at the Christmas party, to go back to Seinfeld. So that's going on. And it was so quiet at that point, you could hear individual hand claps of the people in and around the ring. It was so quiet in this arena with however many thousand people. And that's when the guy hopped the rail. And Michael Cole said, "Well, that's Ryan Garcia." And I was going, "Oh, is he Danny's brother? Does AEW know he's there?" But I thought he was a fucking, rap guy or a Bad Bunny fellow. So nobody in the crowd was clapping while the conga line went around the ring. And when old Garcia gets in the ring, he picks up the guitar and starts strumming it. And Joe Hendry, "Yay, cheer for us," and turns his back. And Garcia draws back and hits fucking Hendry in the back with the guitar, which he's got to then go down and sell for a while. And it actually, I think it got a pop because it stopped the music, didn't it? Because later on they booed when the heel started beating up Danhausen, but it was a cheer when the music stopped. Yeah, and so did the conversation.
I was hoping he would destroy all the instruments. This was one of the worst segments, like I said, ever in the history of wrestling, in the history of Raw. Now, this boxer, Ryan Garcia, was an upcoming fight for Zuffa Boxing, so there's the connection.
Okay.
People started writing to me, "Oh, Wayne, I can't wait to hear what Jim says about them using this guy." And I'd never heard of him.
God, I haven't either.
Well, here's, according to Wikipedia, this is about his expulsion from the WBC.
Oh, Christ.
On July 4th, 2024, Garcia was expelled by the WBC president Mauricio Suleiman after using racial slurs against black people and disparaging Muslims in comments live streamed on social media. He was also called out on social networks, being rumored that he was abusing illegal substances. Suleiman said Garcia declined multiple attempts by the WBC to help with his mental health and substance abuse. He was reinstated in 2025.
A fine representative for the comedy segment of the program, the lightheartedness.
In 2024, his ex-wife Andrea Salina accused him of breaking into her home and smashing her belongings.
Oh, good Lord.
He was arrested for that. Yeah, this is the guy that they're promoting, but that's fine if you want to say, that's who's boxing. But why the hell are you using him in the middle of angles? And I say in the middle of angles, he came out strongest in this angle. Yeah. Not Judgment Day.
Oh, yeah. Well, and we haven't actually even finished it yet, because I should say that after the guitar smash and record scratch, then Dominic and J.D. McDonough came in and just kicked the shit out of Danhausen and beat up the minis and won the big body slam, the little beaver spot. And then Dominic gave a splash to Danhausen, and as they were trashing the set that they had for their concert, they knocked the organ over, and you saw that it was just a fake fucking keyboard. There was nothing under, there was no innards. It was like fake pipes and a keyboard and a front skirt. But you know what I told you earlier, Brian? You said it went on forever. Guess the exact time of this segment from the time that Joe Hendry and Danhausen first began strumming on the old banjo in the ring to the time that the boxer was standing there holding up the Dominic and JD's hands.
Ooh, 6 minutes.
Well, son of a bitch, 5 minutes and 30 seconds.
It felt long.
I thought you were going to say 12 or 13.
I was going under what I thought it was because there was no way it could have been that long. But that was pure luck.
You needed to time this thing with a sundial, not a stopwatch. It just was. So that from the sublime to the ridiculous, you got.
Again, this is who they're promoting. I'm seeing more stuff here. This guy, Garcia, posted on X in 2024. I don't support the LGBTQ plus minus whatever the fuck at all. Fuck you guys, rotten hell.
Jesus Christ.
This is the guy they're putting on TV. It's insane. It's insane.
Well, I just wish he'd make his full thoughts and stance known so that we could know exactly what position he's taken on this matter.
I'm sure this did wonders to promote his fight. I'm sure so many people saw this and said, well, I really need to see him box now.
Oh, yeah. Well, this made him a hell of a fucking tough guy. As long as guitars are legal for Zuffa boxing, then I think he's got this thing well in hand. Bet the farm, ladies and gentlemen, on Ryan Garcia with a guitar shot. Acoustic or electric? Do you think one of our friends in the fantasy gaming world would be taking any kind of propositions on whether he uses an acoustic or electric guitar to smack his boxing opponent over the head?
I think that would be a crazy bet. I mean, if you're going to go for the reaction, the crowd, and the sound and everything, it has to be the acoustic. An electric guitar works in your head and it's heavier, but it won't make the...
It won't make the El Kabong.
Yeah, it doesn't give you the oomph. That's right.
But I'm thinking somebody may just want to say, I want to take the hardest, densest object I can and hit this son of a bitch. I don't care whether it sounds good for the people or not. See, he could be one of those guys. But the point is, ladies and gentlemen, regardless of whether you have an acoustic guitar or an electric guitar and you hit somebody over the head with it, it's going to go bang, at least in their brain, but it's also painful. So a good way to make sounds come into your brain without having to get hit over the head, you see where I'm going with this, Brian, is by just taking these cute little earbuds. These cute little earbuds, and you don't have to put them all over your body. You just got to put them right around your ears because they're the Raycon Essential Open Ear Buds. And the open ear design lets you listen to music or podcasts or any other kind of audio that you want to while you still hear traffic or severe weather announcements or people screaming, "What's the fuck out?" Whatever's going on around you as you go about your daily life. And if you're at near construction sites, you might be able to write these sumbitches off on your taxes if you're a construction worker, because you really do need to watch out for people screaming, "It's coming!" But folks, one way or another, you won't have to listen to any more concerts featuring Joe Hendry and Danhausen, because whenever that comes up again, you can just stick these sumbitches in, turn them on, turn them up, and tune everybody else out, because it's just the right thing to do, Brian.
I agree. I would turn Joe Hendry off every single time. But if you don't want to forget to turn the TV back on,
he's become your Grayson Waller. He's become your Grayson Waller. Now you'll never give him another chance.
Well, it's the music. It's the music and the endless music, and everything's about the smile and the fucking music. And no, go work for Vince. I don't like this shit.
But you know what you do like?
I like my Raycons.
Open earbuds.
I don't like my Raycons. I love my Raycons. My entire family is in love with their Raycon earbuds.
Hold on now. We don't want you performing any kind of those unsavory acts with your Raycons. We want a platonic relationship.
That is not what I was saying at all.
Just because they're manufactured to stick into an orifice in your body doesn't mean you have to get all fucking...
No one was. This is where you're...
Perverted about it.
This is what Joe Hendry does to your mind. You think about that big burger contest you had and you start making up crazy stories. Ladies and gentlemen, they are fantastic. And Jim... They are fantastic earbuds, loved by all. At least all that we know that have a pair. They love them, and we love them, and you'll love them, and it's a great deal for all of us lovers. Jim, Raycon.
Yes, well, the 3 million people love them because that's how many of the customers they've had. And we have heard from about 2.4 million. It's taking up a lot of our spare time. The sound quality is just as good as the way more expensive hoity-toity brands. And if you don't like these, they've got a 30-day guarantee. The open ear design, the lightweight multi-angular hook, the hook that goes right around your ear there, it adapts to any ear. Even like Roy Welch could have worn these things, old bag ears. All day comfort and awareness. You will gain a higher state of awareness once these things are strapped to the side of your head because of these small uranium capsules that are placed within.
That's not why at all. No, there's no.
It supercharges all your senses. So
there are no uranium capsules, for the record. No uranium.
Your arms will start trembling and tingling whenever danger approaches. But folks, again...
No, that won't be happening, but you will be alert, so you won't...
Yes, you'll be alert, but still, sign over your power of attorney and possibly, write out a living will just in case anything could happen. You could get hit with a fucking bus, but you'll be alert when you're wearing the Raycons. And the Essential Open Earbuds, they're the perfect back-to-school companion. Let's say the kid's on the bus. They don't want to listen to each other. Give your kid some Raycons. He won't learn those filthy words from those other ragamuffins engaging in all kinds of ragamuffin-like behavior. Hooligans. Go right now to Buy Raycon, not for hooligans, but for earbuds. BuyRaycon.com, buyraycon.com/JCE Open, OPEN. That's how you spell that. You're going to get 20% off. So you can plug your kid's ears up before he goes to school, and it'll cost you 20% less if you act right now. BuyRaycon.com/JCE Open, 20% off, or just plug your own ears up so you can't hear the little crumb snatching rugrats screaming for mommy, mommy, mommy. See that you can turn off the awareness and you can just hold your hands over your ears while you're wearing the Raycons. You won't be able to hear all these people screaming at you.
Again, hold your ears up high, proud.
Hold your ears up. Whoa. Hold your ears up. Whoa.
Great earbuds. I love them. I said that multiple times today, and I'll say it again in the future.
I'm beginning to wonder if you're a stalker.
There's a lot of love in the air or in the ear, depending on.
Is this a consensual relationship between you and these earbuds?
Of course it is. We all consent to Raycon love in our ears. This is getting out of control. One last time, Jim. A promo code with a great deal.
And they called it Raycon Love. BuyRaycon.com/JCE Open, 20% off.
Raycon.
All righty, Brian. Well, I get what we're going to do this week here on the program as far as covering the AEW television situation is, Brian, would I be quoting a famous author if I said it was the best of times, it was the worst of times? Or I could say they went from the outhouse to the penthouse, or vice versa. The best 5 minutes that I have seen on AEW television in, I don't know how many months and months, how many months and years, as Nick Goulas would have said. It was contained therein this week, and it was wrapped by start to finish, again, the most indecipherable bunch of gaga that they have gummed up their main event for Wembley Stadium with Kenny and Willie and Moxley and all these other fucking, and it just, I know to their fans, I believe I've heard you say, so I'll give you credit for this statement. It doesn't matter about the booking or the television as far as whether it makes sense or not. They just want to see a bunch of matches. But having said that, wouldn't you try to make it halfway easy to figure out who the fuck you're supposed to cheer for or what the fuck is going on with any of these people, or just give them less time to drone on about it.
Yeah, I think you can do all of this a whole lot better. All of this with the main event picture right now, which is Osprey, Omega, and Moxley. And I guess Paige.
Well, I thought she was gone.
No, Adam Page.
Oh, I thought you meant the other one with the dark hair and a tattoo.
The former men's world's heavyweight champion.
Oh, well, you got to distinguish that because when Adam Page had the title, you needed to. Nobody could tell who the men's and women's champions were. But anyhow, let's do the compliment sandwich first. Let's talk about what they did right. Did you watch the promo with Willow Nightingale?
I did.
This was the best, as I said, 5 to 7 minutes of AEW television that I've seen, and I don't know how long. The problem was the segment went 15, but we'll get to that. But possibly, Brian, while I'm rambling on, you can find out, or you know the answer off the top of your head. Was this her hometown or near her home?
Oh, no. No.
But then there was a segment of people that showed up to support her with signs and all type of, verbally and with all of the yay Willow. But it was contagious that the whole building they went ape. It was like a hometown goddamn hero returning with their conquered spoils or whatever.
No, they just like her. She's from Long Island. This was in Detroit.
Well, boy, howdy. But she got a standing ovation or nearabouts, big cheers, and she was really crying and overcome with emotion, which, is a good thing for the young folks. But it was organic then, apparently. And not only that, but one of the rare times where they had to stop the start of the interview because people weren't finished fucking cheering somebody yet. And usually that is not happening on this program. And she did a great babyface promo. She thanked her mother for cheering her up when she was out injured. And she gave her history of all of the great things that had happened to her in the last year, but it didn't come off as braggy or obnoxious. She was thrilled by this wonderful serendipitous success that had befallen her. The crowd didn't throw her off sometimes when they would cheer or react or whatever. Sometimes that happens, but she nailed it. And then she had a big go home line that got a big fucking pop. And I wrote great 2 exclamation points. And then Mercedes's music played. But before we go to part B, what did you think? Just again, her genuineness, she was really thrilled, but at the same time, she did a very well-spoken promo, putting herself over and, just nothing negative, put the business over, whatever. It was a moment there. Did you think?
Oh, I thought that absolutely. And again, I've always been high on her. I remember when she first came in, I said early on, she'd be the person, if I was WWE, I would raid. I thought she was ready. She would get over big time in front of that audience. She comes across in the ring like she came across in the promo. As someone it's impossible not to like. And someone you want to root for. And I thought this whole thing was tremendous. And, we see a lot of long segments when you see genuine emotion in them. And you could just tell.
Yeah.
It registers. And I thought this was tremendous. And I think if she loses the belt, they're crazy. And I thought it was crazy to put the belt on her after I thought Tekla was doing so good, but man, this was a promo.
Well, and she's got the people, and you could build on that. But again, here comes Mercedes. And I was thinking it was going so well. And I admit that Mercedes was not as robotic and boring as normal. But at the same point, this
she had
went
heat
for
the first time.
Well, she had heat for the first time because the people felt the same way I did. It was going so well with Willow. We like Willow. Go, what the fuck? Right? And Mercedes wanted her to sign the contract, and Willow signed it, leaning it on Mercedes's chest. And then this segment was laid out to where they weren't supposed to get in a fight until the other people came in at the end. But Mercedes pie-faced her once, pushing her with the fucking contract back, and then did it again later on when it was, I don't know if that was her ad-libbing. I don't know why that they thought that it was a good idea for her to lay her hands on Willow, and Willow at least not pie-faced back. But nevertheless, at the point they signed the contract, Renee Moxley Good left the ring, and they just started their dueling promos. And Willow cut a good promo on Mercedes. And Mercedes, but the people, the reason why that I say that they weren't particularly, Mercedes doesn't have that heat as much as Mercedes interrupting Willow had that heat, because as soon as she started talking, they just chanted Willow, Willow over her promo. And then they switched to shut the fuck up, which they're not even trying to censor anymore. Unfortunately, she didn't. And then they started arguing and yelling, but here came Megan Brain and what's her partner's name?
Lena Cross.
Lena Cross, and now Willow's fighting them, but it's a ring full of streamers, and she hit a couple of them, and it looked like shit that they didn't sell it, and the one still had her tiara on, and they double choke slammed Willow, and here came the battling birds and made the save. But we went from, even if this had been spread over 2 weeks, why the fuck was it an emergency to do this with that promo? Let her end it there on her go-home line in the big pop, and you felt good. And Willow was over. And then you go another 10 fucking minutes with all this other shit and leave her laying in a fucking puddle of her own streamers with these green fucking giants.
I wonder often if it would make it more tolerable at times. Not that this was bad. I thought this whole thing was good. But if they, instead of having everything be a confrontation, just had, like if Willow did this promo and it ended, and that was it, and everyone left on a really fucking high note, and then Mercedes came out separately at a later time later in the show, so that you somehow get this thing back out there in front of a crowd that was hot for Willow, I would think that would be more effective. You could have done everything the same otherwise, except Mercedes was talking shit. The heel was in the ring causing trouble. But instead, everything's just jammed into one thing, and the complaints you have are the repercussions.
The repercussions of same. But let's talk about the repercussions, though, because there was only one other thing of any interest on this program, and that was the continuing puzzlement over what the fuck's going on with Will Ospreay and Kenny. I mean, we got Persephone against Maya World for the girls' title. We had a three-way for the national title with Jungle Jack and Nikki Wayne and Andrade. By the way, I was fast forwarding, but I wanted to see if I could understand what Andrade said, and he didn't say much, but they've tried to slow him down. It sounds like a 33 1/3 record album being played at fucking 12. But Tony Schiavone was interviewing him and said, well, Andre, next week we're going to be in your hometown of Mexico.
I heard it.
And, hey, Hector, tell him in Mexican to get off of him. We had a 6-man tag. Another title was on the line with Commander and Moxley. They had another 6-man tag.
There was a spot that everyone was going crazy about. It was all over.
I saw it on Twitter. I didn't watch the match, but yes, apparently they're fighting on the outside of the ring. Who could imagine? And fucking Moxley just gets up off the floor and rolls in the ring of his own volition and rolls flat of his back and lays there because Commander's going to the top rope and Commander gives him a splash off the top. So they just broke up their fight on the floor for Moxley to roll in the ring and lay there in the proper position to get fucking splashed, and then he got splashed. What? How do they think people don't notice things like that when it's like on television and shit?
I think they think that they can get away with it with their audience, that their audience won't care. But to the rest of us, it looks ridiculous. If Moxley hadn't rolled in the ring, Commander would have really fucked himself up because he was already going for that move before Moxley.
Yes, he was already on his way to the top rope before Moxley got all the way in the fucking ring. It's just like, okay, I'll meet you there.
Awful.
But we're already talking about the other subject we're going to talk about on Dynamite, and that's this trilogy of terror between Moxley and Ospreay and Kenny. And they opened the program with they were at the pay-per-view, and remember, as last we left our space travelers, ladies and gentlemen, Kenny had beaten Kevin Knight on the pay-per-view. But then Moxley and the Boar Horsemen came out and were going to beat the shit out of Ospreay and Kenny rather, and put the chair on his neck and all that stuff. And Ospreay came out and stopped him. But then Moxley tried to get Ospreay to put the plastic bag over Kenny's head, and Ospreay held it. He looked at it. And he looked at everybody. You know what? Fuck you. And he nailed fucking Moxley after trying to failing to tear the plastic bag in half. And then he renounced the Death Riders and, he's out of the group. He doesn't agree with doing it that way to Kenny. He called him off from injuring Kenny. And then for doing that, Kenny picked him up and gave him the one-wing fairy. That was at the pay-per-view. So now to open this program, we had a video of Moxley and his guys in the back at the pay-per-view watching what happened in the ring with Kenny and Ospreay, where they were glorifying for the crowd and they were listening to the music like the Doobie Brothers. And Moxley was there saying, get him, Ospreay, before he gets you, get him. And then Kenny did get him, proving that the heel was right all along and now has the right to say, I told you so. Is for the first time in the history of professional wrestling. Is that the case? That the heel was right all along with what he was telling the babyface? And I told you so. Is that was the first thing that struck me right there. Has that logic or reasoning or philosophy or psychology or whatever nom de plume you would like to ascribe to that ever been done before, where the heel was proven right over the babyface?
The Death Riders change back and forth between heel and babyface each segment. There were clearly babyfaces in this. But then again, I can't explain any of the rationale behind any of this. They're getting away with it because their fans want matches. But imagine if the booking of these top stars was good or coherent. Jeez.
Well, then we went from that video to the present day on the program out in the back parking lot. And they were in like a Masonic temple in Detroit. So this didn't look like, it looked like also it was perfect for them because it was an indie movie set where they're behind a fence and a viaduct. And it looks like one of those fucking 80s goddamn movies where the street gangs are facing up with each other. But Will's in the back with Renee. But there's Moxley and all of the henchmen except for Claudio. And they meet up, and there's a mean stare with Moxley and Ospreay. And then Danny Garcia starts to walk up and talk to Will. And Will just fucking knocks the shit out of him back on his ass. And Pac is going to grab Ospreay, but Moxley holds him back. And Moxley gets that goddamn, I don't know, face. It kind of looks like a basset hound having a stroke. Where he says, "Are you sure you want to do that?"
I'm going to shit or burp. I can't decide.
Yeah. And then Ospreay gives Moxley the little patch that he gave him, the Death Riders patch.
Here's your pin.
Yeah, it's almost the prom, but no. Here's your pin back. Ospreay gave him that back. They exchanged mean looks, and then Ospreay started to walk off. And Renee's going to try to follow him for comments after this tense scene, but suddenly...
You know, let's stop right there. Just a little detail.
Okay.
Moxley's wife.
Yes.
His wife is the one you running after him after the argument with her husband. It's so crazy.
But anyway, Ospreay runs into Hangnail Page, returns on the program. The problem was he was not on the rest of the program. Is he just hanging around parking lots in substandard neighborhoods in Detroit? Or what would he be doing there? Did you
getting a haircut?
Was that? He did get a trim. We'll give it, but so it was standing out in the back of the building, and they have a long back and forth where Paige is trying to put him over and say, "If you need anything, let me know." And but Ospreay says, "Hey, if I found out I couldn't trust Kenny, I can't trust them. I can't trust you. I'm going to do this all on my own." And Paige then went on in his usual boring fashion and told, "Well, you've got this. I believe in you." Okay. And that was it for him on the program. Maybe has he got a job for Ford since he's been off? All right. So then we had a bunch of this other stuff that I mentioned before. And then I'm not understanding their formatting. I'm really not, because they have a 2-hour television program and then they always do an overrun. And so now people have, if you watch the program regularly, you become accustomed to that. You'll record, if you're DVRing, the program after their program. So you get all of their program, because that's where, if they're going to do something big, they've already excluded just the people that just get DVR the regular show. But now they did a program where the overrun ran over. So if you recorded the program after the fucking program, you still didn't get all the program. Brad, did this happen to you, or am I the only one?
I watched the end of this live because I watched Impractical Jokers right after it. It was a good episode too. It was pretty funny.
But it was they did actually go past 10:30 o'clock.
I don't remember exactly what time it was, but I think so. It went really long. I remember thinking, "This is it." I forget even what the match was, but was it Moxley? Was that early? Whatever the last match was.
No, it was earlier. No, the last 6-man tag. It was the 6-man tag title.
Yeah. And I remember thinking, this is like when they have
Kyle O'Reilly, Roderick Strong, and Pockets against Ricochet and his two stooges, whatever the fuck their names are. And that was the main event, and that was in the overrun. So I went to the overrun. So I thought, I'll just check the overrun in case somebody came out and did a, disembowelment or something. And after that, they went to a break and came back. This is their big main event segment between Kenny and Will, where they're trying to promote their goddamn stadium show. And it didn't even start until 10:15. And it overran the overrun. So this is an example of, goddamn, even if there's a story in here somewhere, by the time they get finished telling it, you've lost it or you don't care. Besides the fact that I think Kenny, it seemed like he went on for 10 minutes. to Osprey in Kenny's voice with the way Kenny talks about how he did what he did to Osprey because he loves him. Did you understand why that Kenny gave his finish move to Osprey on the pay-per-view otherwise than he loves him and he respects him?
No, it wasn't really coherently explained. And everyone loves everyone and everyone wants everyone at their best. And that's part of the problem.
Well, and then Osprey said, well, my problem was I came back from my neck injury too soon. I let the fans down. I had no friends. And Moxley saved me. Moxley saved me and gave me new life. And I liked being a Death Rider. And I'm like, what the fuck? Who are the goddamn heels? Is the guy that broke my neck saved me? And he's already said, I knew he'd turn on me sooner or later, but I like the camaraderie or whatever the fuck.
That's what he said. I like the camaraderie.
Yeah, I like the camaraderie. But I don't share their philosophy. So I helped you. I saved you from them doing the same thing to you that they did to me with the chair on the neck and the blah, blah, blah. But then Kenny, after this guy admits he liked being in the heel group and he fucking, whatever the fuck, Kenny then says, I was down and out. And it was the most, not lurid, but florid description of how that all the heels had jumped on him and were pummeling him. But he used the phrase at one point, gosh darn. Gosh darn is a thing he said. But he was down and out in the ring and he couldn't do anything, but he heard the cheers and he knew Will was there. And then he still had to wait forever for anybody to help him. And when finally he was able to look up and clear his sights, he saw you holding the plastic bag and his belt. And he knew you had thought about doing it, Will. So now this ungrateful son of a bitch, the reason why he dropped him on his head is because he saved him, but he didn't save him fast enough.
He held the bag too long.
He was left holding the bag too long. He had to think about it. Well, at least he goddamn did it. He could have just fucking suffocated your goddamn douchebag ass. But nevertheless, you thought about it. And I wrote, Jesus fucking Christ, this is taking forever. And then Kenny slapped him and called him a liar. And he said, I thought you were my friend. And Osprey said, I was your friend. And then I'll be a son of a bitch if my DVR didn't freeze because it was 10:30 at night. They'd gone 30 minutes over and they still weren't done. So I understand, Brian, that Uncle Dave transcribed the major happenings in this week's publication of the Wrestling Observer. Can you tell me and anybody else who DVR'd this thing to watch later on, what the fuck did somebody one wing fucking hidden angel blade somebody, or what happened?
No, none of that happened. Just kind of ended with, what will happen next. Here's what Dave wrote. Well, Dave really recapped the whole thing.
And I'm sure it was a lengthy recap.
Omega said he didn't enter the Owen Hart Cup because he wanted Osprey to win it. But he said when Osprey said that it sucks that he gave up on himself, you have no idea how deeply that cut me. He said he gave him plenty of warnings about the Death Riders and Moxley in particular. He said it blew up in Osprey's face. But it didn't. Right? Osprey chose not, they didn't beat up Osprey. It didn't blow up in his face at all, really, with them.
And Dave's grammar, but continue.
Osprey said that he came back too early from neck surgery. He said he wasn't fully ready, but he wanted revenge on Moxley so bad, and he lost.
Then he ended up joining forces with him so Moxley could smarten him up and teach him what to do.
He said about the Death Riders, he loved the camaraderie, and I loved the training. It goes from he to I in the same sentence. He said it was like Japan when he would go from town to town and had buddies watching his back. But he said he didn't share their philosophy.
Did he just roam the country of Japan with a group of thugs? What?
The other touring wrestlers. Omega said, "You're wondering why I took you out. I saw you with the plastic bag. You thought about doing it to me before you decided against it. But you arrived late. And that you want me to thank you for saving me when it was all a trap you set up in the first place." Ospreay said it wasn't a trap. Omega slapped him and called him a liar. Omega slapped him and called him a liar. Omega said, "I thought you were my friend." He said the reason it took Ospreay so long to help him is because he was thinking of doing it himself, but you weren't able to. Omega slapped him some more. He said,
Some more.
He said that
He slapped me. He slapped me again.
He said that every time that Ospreay is put in a pressure cooker, he crumbles. And that he was always better than
things in a
Ospreay.
pressure cooker don't crumble.
No,
they're wet and steam expands. They more explode rather than crumble.
I mean, it may be soft, but anyway, he kept slapping Ospreay, and the crowd reacted to every slap.
I'm sure they did.
Omega said that you'll always be a step behind. Ospreay decked him and went for the hidden blade, but Omega backed off. Ospreay said that no matter how much I love you and that you're my hero, you put your hands on me again and I'll beat the shit out of you. Ospreay said that he came to AEW when Omega was out and that every week he flew from the UK to the US to prove that AEW was where the best wrestle since Omega wasn't there. He said that he's earned his spot to challenge for the title, gave his neck to challenge.
This is all in the overrun now, by the way. I didn't hear any of this shit.
That's right. Gave his neck to challenge for the title, and I'm standing before the biggest moment of my career. He said he's looking at a mountain he wanted to climb for 10 years. He said that winners want the ball. The ace wants the ball. The 90 minutes are up. Overtime is over. And we're into penalty kicks. And it's my time to kick the ball.
What the goddamn? And rounding the turn, it's Beetle Bomb.
He said England wasn't. He said
England wasn't built in a day, and this promo's taking longer.
He said England wasn't good at penalty kicks. And they are asking if I could pull the trigger. You're damn right I could pull the trigger. I'm not going to let Moxley keep you from being your best. I want the best versus the best. I'm going to pull that trigger when it matters. And when I pull that trigger, you're going to see it coming.
Jesus Christ, we certainly heard it coming. All right, well, so there's ill will there. Whose side are you on? Which of these ungrateful, smarmy pricks do you give a shit about winning?
I'm starting to think maybe it's Dave's writing that caused Vince to insist on pronouns, because that was all over the place. I don't know. Omega's clearly the heel now, even though part of the story was Ospreay having to get past his mentor who went through so much to get the belt. And then Omega turns heel right before the fucking
2 weeks ago, it was the other way around. It was Ospreay was with the Death Riders and Kenny was kissing babies.
You didn't even talk about the ridiculous outdoor Death Riders promo before the main thing.
I don't believe I saw that.
It's the usual thing where they all just stand there waiting for their turn to say their memorized thing, and Daniel Garcia is the least convincing promo in professional wrestling. He should never be allowed on the mic again. And his competition is Wheeler Yuta, the guy who went right before him. Marina is better on the mic, and she doesn't talk.
And English is her second language, from what I can tell when she has.
Now, I will give them some credit, whether it's the Omega Ospreay main event, which I do think to their fan base is probably as big a match as you could present for, like, that style. It's like the ultimate of that style. They've sold more tickets. They've actually had a really nice little run of ticket sales. They've had a lot of discounts, but they're still going to have people in the building.
Well, and do we know, and I don't mean to go off on a tangent here, but with this or with SummerSlam, with the sudden increase in ticket sales, do we know? Well, I say tickets distributed. That's my question, especially with the WWE, because they jumped ridiculously with no major reason for it. Are these tickets being distributed or are they being sold? Is the question.
Distributed. We don't know what's sold and what isn't. And that would be a great strategy. I mean, Tony has so much money, he could do anything. And some of this could be a tax write-off. Like Survivor Series. Tony should buy up all the tickets. And then just hold them. Just fucking sunk cost. Oh, I spent all that money and have an empty building for Survivor Series. Wouldn't that be funny?
Oh my God. There may be something wrong with that. Like Terry Funk had that idea he pitched to Jerry Jarrett. Let's just book all the major buildings and all the guys' territories in the country for Thanksgiving night when they want to have their big show, and then they'll have to rent their buildings from us. And Jerry said, Terry, what if they just decide, fuck those guys, and they don't run Thanksgiving night? Then we got to run a show at every goddamn building in the country. Maybe not. But anyway, that's what's going on there. But there was one other thing about the pay-per-view that we had heard, Brian, was going to happen. The AEW pay-per-view, that is, we had heard was going to happen, and they were going to have some kind of, because they were in Montreal, celebration of the lives of or tribute to the Rougeau family. Jacques Sr. and Jacques Jr. and Raymond and the whole Rougeau gang, all the way up to Eddie Auger, Armand, Philippe, all them fellows. And we didn't see hide nor hair of anything Rougeau related, at least I didn't, and you didn't mention it on the pay-per-view, and we didn't think of it. And apparently they were going to have something. They tried to have something. Something didn't work out. What is the story here on the tribute to the marvelous Rougeaus or ravishing Rougeaus or whatever the fucking Rougeaus were?
They were the fabulous Rougeaus, and it's more than just the tag team. It's the whole family. I did not see this. I usually get to catch a lot of the pre-show. I didn't this time. So I didn't know this aired. And we heard they were doing something in Montreal. Now, I do have to say, we've been hearing stories about Jacques Rougeau for a little while. We have not really talked about it. But it's not like we'd be inventing the stories. They've been reported on. They've been talked about. I know they've been in The Observer, where there's been just incidents with Jacques Rougeau where he tried to have like some kind of, I don't even know what happened. Was it a shoot that went wrong? Was it him and Davey Boy Smith Jr. had an incident, and him and Dynamite Kid's children were going to do something, and then they pulled out, and he's feuding with Hannibal. Like, just there's all this like weird shit going on around him.
Yeah, we've heard reports. It sounded grim there, so we should clarify that there are various incidents of unusual and or aggressive behavior.
Here's what Dave Meltzer wrote. Strange stuff happened from the start of the show. The idea was to make the pre-show mostly hype, with one match instead of the usual 3 or 4, but having a Rougeau family ceremony, which I don't think does anything to hype the pay-per-view, but certainly the Rougeau family is deserving. This was the 80th anniversary of the family in pro wrestling, dating back to Eddie Auger debuting in 1946. Auger is the uncle of Johnny Rougeau, probably the 3rd biggest star in Montreal history behind Yvan Robert and Edouard Carpentier, although you could strongly argue that Jean Ferret, Andre the Giant, is in a top 3 spot. Anyway, let me fast forward a little bit here.
I was about to say, let's get to the happenings at hand.
Jacques' sons, Raymond, Jacques Jr., Armand, and daughter Joanne, who was the local WWE promoter for a long time, were all names on the local scene, and Jacques' sons Cedric and Jean-Jacques working on the show. That's what his name is here. Anyway, this part was confirmed. The reason the ceremony didn't even have a video is because Jacques told AEW he'd take care of that. He gave them a video to play. Unfortunately, the video was too long, had footage that AEW didn't have rights to, music that AEW didn't have rights to, and some AI stuff in it that AEW didn't want to use.
Oh my God.
There was no way it could be used, and now it's the day of the show with no time to do anything else. So there was no video. Multiple sources said Jacques was throwing a tantrum backstage over that. He was told by one AEW official to calm down or they'd have to kick him out.
Oh, good Lord.
So let's stop here for a second.
So are we going to have to kick you out before we do the ceremony to honor you?
You have that video you promised. Here it is. We can't use this. We're going to kick you out of here. Just the whole process of it.
I bet you he gave him a bunch of shit of him in the WWF on a video. And who knows if he had somebody do a music video set to, I don't know, Celine Dion or who's on top in Canada these days. But and I could see, yeah, what do you mean? You can't play? Oh, come on. It's just play it in the dark, in front of the building. I sound like Pat Patterson now instead of Jacques Rougeau.
Armand Rougeau, the brother of Jacques and Raymond, who was a star in Montreal but not as big as his brothers and not outside of the area, was invited but declined. Joanne said that she was never invited. Raymond...
I think she was the nicest one of the bunch of them.
Raymond, who is the mayor of Rawdon, Quebec since 2021...
Wait a minute. Raymond Rougeau is the mayor of Raw Dog, Quebec?
Rawdon, not Raw Dog.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, one would think they could do something or some kind of salve or liniment for Don there then if he's raw.
He attended. For a time, he and Jacques weren't on speaking terms, but after their father died, they have been doing appearances together. So the segment started. Raymond spoke for a long time in French. There was no translation. He thanked the fans and talked a little about the family legacy, naming every member of the Rougeau family, including Eddie Auger, Johnny, his dad, his brother Armand, and Jacques' children, not by name, but as Jacques' children.
I can't remember. There's so many names running through my head, but Jacques' kids, you know who they are.
He didn't mention Joanne, but he did mention her in interviews he did to promote the event. Jacques started talking and was booed heavily.
Oh.
While Jacques is very well known in town because of the family and his long tenure as a local wrestling celebrity in a market where wrestling is more mainstream than most North American cities, he's also developed a bad reputation, particularly in the area's wrestling world. There was just a recent incident we covered not that many weeks ago, but there are local stories like that going back decades. He's done so many retirement matches that local media doesn't trust him.
Ugh.
Many area independent wrestlers want nothing to do with shows he's involved with. He didn't talk about the family or history. He then told the fans they can kiss his ass.
Wait. Goddamn family honoring ceremony. He closes with telling the fans to kiss his
ass. Some watching this thought that Jacques was being a great heel. This was anything but. He then called the fans haters. It finished with a segment where Rocky Romero came out and Jacques slapped him and Raymond kicked him. Matt Menard, who introduced the brothers along with Jacques, clotheslined Romero out of the ring, which did get a pop. Jacques later in local media claimed there was less than 100 people booing him, but he was able to turn the crowd to where they all cheered him. All right, so that's what we missed. Jacques Rougeau. And again, I've always heard different stories from different people. People who worked with him in Southeastern and in Memphis. No one ever said he was evil, but there were always maturity issues, I guess, would be the...
Yes, and or just a streak of saying just outright things to people that were going to piss them off in an aloof type of arrogance that the people from French Canada often have.
There was some story where on some Southeastern show, I think it was Southeastern, I'm pretty sure it was, I don't know who booked them, and I don't know what the specific heat was, but Joe LeDuc like smacked him around the ring. And obviously there's whatever the stories are from Canada because of the different sides.
Well, yeah, from Montreal.
Yeah, but the story was Jacques came to the locker room really upset, like crying upset.
Oh, yeah, that's lucky. It was lucky he was conscious to be able to cry. I can't imagine if Joe LeDuc was upset with somebody in what could have occurred. Just that would have scared the shit out of me.
But again, there have been multiple retirement matches like that thing just said. We just talked about in the 1994 list segments, Pierre the Quebecer, and you can question what advice he was getting from Jacques Rougeau at different times.
Exactly.
How it affected his career.
And it was Hogan that they believe Jacques, because Pierre wouldn't put Hogan over in Montreal. Remember, that's what it was a bitch about. And some people were thinking that Jacques had told him, "No, bigger boy, whatever."
I have a tweet here from wrestling historian and reporter Pat LaPrade, has a lot of credibility, from Montreal. For those who think Jacques Rougeau got a heel reaction in Montreal, that wasn't the case. He was legitimately being booed. He tried to save face with his comeback, but when you're being honored in your hometown, calling out your haters and telling them to kiss your ass isn't supposed to happen. More and more fans are simply seeing him for who he really is. It's his hometown. Just imagine anyone in their hometown getting a big ceremony and they start fighting.
Oh, this fucking, well, we know him better than anybody, folks. Well, maybe that's part of the reason, Brian, why that, because we said, boy, that crowd in Montreal, they were, it was like a morgue in there in some places. They were quiet. They didn't give a shit. They just popped on the breaking of the furniture, but maybe they'd already gotten a sour mood from thinking about the Rougeaus in the pre-match ceremony. Could that have been part of what contributed to the lack of caring of the crowd, along with the shitty matches?
I don't know. I feel like that would almost energize you more. Like, oh yeah, we get to boo this asshole.
Yeah, but then you got to sit through 5 more hours of shit, and you're already pissed off and want to go home and have a drink.
Again,
nevertheless,
he just came out of retirement. He just came out of retirement again, like a month and a half ago, and it was a major incident at that show. It's just, he's the Canadian Alberto Del Rio at this point. Not that he's hurting anyone, but it's just every time he appears anywhere, there's a story and an incident with multiple people backing it up. So I guess that's what I'm saying. Darkseid should do an episode on him.
Well, let's wait and see. The sun may still be setting. Let's see how dark it gets. There still may be time before the dawn. But since the crowd was kind of dreary, Brian, there in Montreal for the pay-per-view was Redemption. The crowd was a little dreary, a little unmotivated. They had to sit long time through a lot of blasé shit. I'm hearing both that the pay-per-view numbers may have been a little lower than normal this time around, but also you're the custodian of this information you're about to tell us. But one would have to think that if there was ever a point that Uncle Dave would come down to reality with his magic Tinkerbell wand that gives out all the stars like fairy dust, he's got to have to come down to earth on some of this, because there was some dog matches and people just sitting there staring at shit on this program. Certainly he's come down to the realm of reason a little bit more in this particular instance.
Yeah, we'll see about that. And again, just like you said, we've heard that the pay-per-view numbers were down. There have been a few down pay-per-views this year, but coincidentally, they're all 140,000 buys. So,
well, we haven't got a number on this one yet that matches that. But I'm thinking that they gotta, even if it's just all fictitious, they got to throw a bone at some point to credibility and say, yeah, we were down 20,000. Or if they're making all this up, they've got to admit this would have to have been the one you would skip.
Well, let's get the star ratings here. This is from the pre-show. We did not see this. Orange Cassidy, Roderick Strong, and Kyle O'Reilly defeated Jay Lethal, Blake Christian, and Lee Johnson 11:53, 3.25 stars.
Well, I'm sure it was. Bless all those fine folks.
Jim, in a ladder match for the top contender spot for the international title, Mike Bailey defeated Nick Wayne, El Clan, Commander, Jack Perry, and Beast Mortos. 20 minutes, 1 second. 4.5 stars.
And remember, we did see that. And that was the indie fellows at their absolute worst, coming up with everything they could think of to do to the human body. So, of course, Dave is going to rate that highly. Yeah, that was pretty much scrambled eggs.
Jim, the Young Bucks defeated Will Ospreay and Jon Moxley, 19 minutes, 36 seconds. 5-star match.
What?
5-star match.
Well, it's two of his best friends and proteges, financiers, fiancés, whatever the fuck. It's two of them. It's Moxley, who he apparently just doesn't want to offend because he's really scared of him, I guess. I don't know why else you would praise this moping clown. And the next darling of the company. So I guess, does he have to cover all of his bases, or that was just better than all but a handful of matches in the rich history of wrestling?
So there was some great no-selling in that match. Some great implausible kickouts. It's everything Dave loves. Lots of flips. Jim, Kyle Fletcher defeated Bandito. 26 minutes, 15 seconds to retain the international title.
Nearly a half. That's longer than a half an hour television program without the commercial breaks is that they had that for that one match.
5-star match.
Holy, all right.
This was the match of the night and a legit match of the year contender. These are two of the 5 best wrestlers in the ring in the world today.
Oh my God.
And both had among their best performances. The only negative...
Not only Kyle, but Bandito groups in as he's top 5.
The only negative is that they were so intent on having this killer match that they crossed over into things like the skull-on-skull headbutts that just don't need to be done. The match was off the charts without them, and the idea is to shock people into taking it to another level when your goal is so high. I think the one... he's just going off on his hypothesis here, but...
Yeah, skip over the next paragraph or two. They might be a little sticky.
All right, let's get to the next one here, Jim. Clark Connors and David Finlay defeated Jay White and Juice Robinson in a double chain match.
Okay, now here we go. I mean, this thing, the fans brought the tickets back that they bought last time for a refund. This was so bad. 17
minutes, 35 seconds, 2.75 stars.
That on the old scale, that was just a notch under really good, better than we expected.
Well, that's not wrong. I mean, I'd probably give it 1 star, maybe.
Yeah.
But Maya World defeated Hikaru Shida to win the TBS title, 16 minutes, 34 seconds, 2.25 stars.
Good Lord, if it was worse than the chain match, I'm surprised that someone wasn't picked up for some kind of local criminal ordinance fucking violation.
Adam Copeland and Christian Cage retained the AEW tag titles over Pac and Claudio Castagnoli. 18 minutes, 35 seconds. 4.25 stars. The Painmaker.
I have no comment.
The Painmaker pinned Tommaso Ciampa in a no-rules match, 21 minutes, 57 seconds.
Now, hold on 1 second. Just pump the brakes there. I've realized one thing. The one overused of the many overused things that AEW does on all their big shows, or all their shows for that matter, there wasn't a lot of furniture and there wasn't a lot of blood before for once, before the anything goes, no rules, whatever the fuck with old Painmaker. And Jericho's got the pull with Tony. I guarantee you he went in there and said, look here, if I'm going to be fucking cutting my head and taking all these goofy bumps in this fucking match with furniture and shit, then there better not be a human sacrifice in the third match before I go out there and do it. Or elsewise, they would have, in addition to these match links, they would have gone to all the other extremes as well. I bet you. But in this case, the finish, let me remind everybody, was fucking the Painmaker taking a goddamn power drill and drilling Tommaso Ciampa in the head with it. So one would think that would reflect accordingly in Dave Meltzer's critique or scoring of this match the same way as if a guy in a UFC fight suddenly reached out and grabbed the power drill from off the press table and started drilling a motherfucker in the head. Would he say, well, it was a great fight, but the power drill was unnecessary or something like that? Or would he say, this is just fucking ridiculous and not in any way what this sport or business is supposed to be about? So, Brian, now tell us what the stars were.
Once again, the Painmaker pinned Tommaso Ciampa, no rules, 21 minutes, 57 seconds, 4.25 stars. This gets one of the, I'm not a fan of this stuff, but it was a great match.
No mention of the power drill.
Jericho used an elbow pad with tacks on it and used a Judas effect with it, got the drill, and started using it to Ciampa's head, and he submitted. I think the drill to the head may be going too far. 4 star.
Period. I think the drill to the head, maybe. I think the mass murder of, thousands of people in that atomic explosion may have been going a bit too far.
I got to read this real quick. A very weird segment took place. Mick Foley was interviewing the Divine Dominion.
Oh, God.
Then he started barking like a dog. I have no idea where they were going with this. Foley later explained that he misheard them. They did say for him to bow down, and he said he thought they said for him to say bow wow. Whatever it was, this was quite awful.
And actually, even if that was supposed to be the impression that people were given, he actually repeated the words bow down first before so he kind of blew it anyway, but go ahead.
All right. Andrade defeated Mark Davis to win the national title, 16 minutes, 13 seconds, 4-star match.
Oh, okay, so now Andrade and fucking, Johnny Doyle this is Flair and Steamboat.
Well, much like Flair, Andrade came out with a bunch of women. But let's move on here with the card.
How you know?
Willow Nightingale defeated Tekla to win the AEW Women's title, 15 minutes, 58 seconds, 3.75 stars.
Almost Flair and Steamboat.
And finally, Jim, Kenny Omega pinned Kevin Knight to retain the AEW title, 24 minutes, 58 seconds.
On and on and on.
4.75 stars. As good as 5.
We can't leave Kenny out. But, if he'd have had a more experienced opponent, he would have got 5 stars. It's all Kevin Knight's fault. I mean, he can't. It doesn't matter if they're in a barn with an audience of chickens and pigs. And it doesn't matter whether the shit makes any sense or not, or it has any credibility. If there's just a lot of it, he loves it. That's Dave's abiding principle, I guess.
Well, he loved it. For a show that he wasn't crazy about, he really loved it.
Yeah, I'd hate to see what happens for the ones that he really likes. Fortunately, he wasn't there live for this one, was he?
No.
Because
he graded it very differently, obviously.
Well, I'm just thinking after that one match, he wouldn't have been able to stand up straight for 20 minutes without being embarrassed.
Tokyo Dome tent pants?
The Tokyo Dome tent pants. That's what they call it around Campbell by the Sea, California. Where's that old guy with those Tokyo Dome tent pole pants going on? Anyhow, you know what the thing is? I'll tell you what the thing is. Nobody's getting enough to eat. That's what the problem is here. Obviously, all these people, they're depriving themselves of good nutrition. They're not getting enough to eat. They're not eating good meals with proper ingredients. These are the kind of people that are probably going to Buc-ee's and getting the beaver nuggets and just stuffing them. I used to be one of those people. I'll have you know, I used to, Brian. I used to do my boarding with the warden. I've lived on the bounty of the county. And at one point in my poorer days in Dallas, Texas, that was right when they had these 7-Elevens with the chicken nuggets that you could get the box out of the freezer, pop the box open, stick it in a goddamn thing, pop it in a machine with oil, and it would fry them right there in front of you and hand them right back out to you. And I lived my life that way. The nuggets of the devil. But then I was reformed, ladies and gentlemen. I've seen the light, and once you've seen the light, you can't walk in the darkness. And now I eat good food, chef-crafted food, dietitian-designed food, ready-to-eat meals, so you can't fuck them up. You can't fuck them up in the cooking because they're already ready for you to eat. All you got to do is heat them up. And they're ready in 2 minutes with no prep and no cleanup. And I'm talking about our friends at Factor. Yeah. Because Factor meals every week, you're going to find over 100 nutrient-dense menu items. And you know what that means? That means these things are loaded. They're packed. They're jammed full. They're stuffed with nutrients. You know what nutrients are? They're things that are nutritious. And these things are so dense, goddamn it, these things are like a brick, these dinners. They just sell, you can't hardly bend over and pick up 5 of them. Big portions to choose from. New options like salmon burgers, shredded pork. They got collard greens. And the collard green comes with a side shake of eggnog and ripple. They call it egg nipple.
Plus, it doesn't come with that, and let's just say that it doesn't come with that.
Oh, that's right. This is the week they got the champagne and ripple, and they call it champipple.
No alcohol, ipple.
Plus add-ons. Well, Ipple can drink on his own time. Plus add-ons that you're going to crave, like pumpkin-flavored cheesecakes and protein shakes. And 97% of users, I'll have you know, Brian, agree that Factor meals help them live a healthier life so you can feel confident that you're doing something good for yourself every time you stick some of the salmon burgers or the teriyaki chicken or the filet with teriyaki the creamy salmon. Parmesan. Teriyaki I thought you liked the teriyaki chicken. Well, the teriyaki salmon.
I'm sure it's delicious.
Just tear into all of that yaki. Just do that That's now. Right. And they have banned 175 ingredients from Factor meals because they don't want any of this poisonous stuff and the bad things that's for it. So there's actually only 3 ingredients left. Salt, cow skin, and fucking gravy.
There are regular ingredients. You don't have to worry about some weird frontier sort of meal you'd be getting, whatever Jim just described.
Well, bury me not on the lone prairie, but many people got food poisoning there. But I'll tell you what, folks, once again, all you got to do is go to factormeals.com, and you can look and you can see at the wonderful array of the plethora of culinary masterpieces and goodness of all kinds that awaits you. They'll send them to your door. You can just pop them in the microwave, heat them up, and eat them. Somebody else has done the cooking. You're going to be healthier than if you're eating these horrible beaver nuggets that people are consuming these days. And you're going to get 50% off and 1 free breakfast item per box for 1 year. While supplies last now, if you use the code JCE50 off, factormeals.com/JCE50 off. 50% off and one free breakfast item per box for a whole dadgum year. It's especially for all of you lonely people living alone in your miserable hovels with your day-to-day shitty lives. You wouldn't be listening to us if you had anybody else to talk to. So this is right up your alley.
Why are you putting down the audience? That is not true.
I'm not putting them down. I'm just facing facts. Now you don't have to cook. You can just sit there like Ebenezer Scrooge in your cold, unheated home and just pop in a Factor and fucking go to town.
Once again, delicious meals.
You can go ahead and give up on life, but don't give up on nutrition.
Don't give up on anything. And of course, we all need the right food in this get up and go world. We need time is what I'm trying to say. And we are there and I am here.
If I only had time.
That's right. And of course, It's time for good food. We love Factor meals here in this house so much that we're yelling right now and we'll bring it back
you're
down.
Screaming at the people.
Jim, I understand we have a great deal for the audience.
If we only had time to tell them about the meal, time to play B-sides, time ain't on my side, time you'll never know, but you will save 50% off. If you go to factormeals.com/JCE50 off and use that code and a free breakfast item, which, once you get like 4 of them and it puts together into one complete breakfast item and you win a prize.
That's what it is. But check it out today. We endorse it. We love it. Factor one more time without any additional news about things. We could save that for next time, Jim. What's that promo code?
Factormeals.com/JCE50 off.
Factor!
All right. Well, at this point, I think we should talk about the episode this past week of Dark Side of the Ring. They're back in at least the real wrestling business after a journey through hysteria last week with Necro Butcher and blah, blah, blah. But this week was the Big Boss Man, Big Bubba Rogers, Ray Traylor, and everybody knows I was going to like this one, regardless of how it came out, just because it's acknowledging Bubba. And as I've said, he's one of the guys that has not been featured on the biographies and the endless documentaries where they rehash a lot of the same people. Bubba hadn't had that treatment. And also, to be honest with you, I thought his daughter Lacey was the star of this show. She's smart. She's been through a lot of shit with her, obviously, her dad dying so young, but she's got her shit together. And she was, I thought, a big addition to this program. But before I rave about it and tell just some of the things, not that I didn't like, but that I was just hated that had to be left out. But you're usually negative Nancy, but this one was a tearjerker in a variety of ways.
It was. Obviously I like the subject. On a high note, I'll say that I thought, like you, I thought his daughter came across great. I know some people may have not been used to the accent on his wife, his widow, but I thought she was pretty good here too. You were also great. And I think in a way they didn't need any of the other voices that were briefly there. Like Jacques Rougeau dressed like the Mountie.
We got to mention, because we were talking about Jacques earlier in the program, and he wore his Mountie vest because they got comments from him based on the Mountie versus Boss Man was a thing, but I understand he's taking at least some good-natured ribbing from some people over wearing the Mountie vest. But yeah, there was a few. Nick Patrick was good, I thought.
I thought he was good too. That is true.
Al Snow was in it because of the dog angle. So that,
boy, that voice, what happened to his voice? What did he did that to his voice?
From what I understand, from what he told me, he got COVID, and that's the result. That I can't remember, there's a medical name for it's his vocal cords, a dysphonia or whatever, but yeah, that's what he's been like that for at least the past. He was that way 3 years ago when I recorded that. When I was in the movie, we shot the movie, and he was at the premiere and sounded the same way.
Yeah, and he looked the same.
But nevertheless,
my point was, all of a sudden when he became a different person, his voice changed. He got that McMahon voice change. I don't know what happened. My complaints, like I said, would be obviously in terms of timeline and in terms of telling the story, it was brief and quick, skip stuff and just kind of rush to the dark side. And I know that's their show, so it's hard to make that a complaint, but that's my only thing. I thought that the idea of a biography of Big Bubba or a documentary, that's great. And that would be great. The way they've done them lately, that'd be great. But I feel like this focuses so much on the negative that it almost makes it the overriding thing, and that bothered me.
Well, and I think because he was, pretty much by the last 15 minutes, the story was over. But I think that's because they had so much good stuff from Lacey and from Angie that, in the memorabilia, and they focused so much on the family story. But again, we're 45 minutes plus commercials. And that's the thing. You know me, I could have seen an hour and a half or more on Big Bubba Rogers at the start of it and the earlier story, because people who listen to this show know I'm not going to tell the whole story again of Ray Traylor came to do jobs and took the slingshot suplex and Dusty said, I'm going to get a gimmick for the guy, blah, blah, blah. But it skipped over so much of what made Bubba a special talent, in that it was such a quick rise. Think about this, 12 months after he first appeared on TBS in those awful tights doing jobs as Ray Traylor, he was a main event against Dusty Rhodes in the Pittsburgh Civic Arena when they set the all-time record crowd and gate for that building for wrestling. It not only a WWF building for years, but a Bruno Sammartino's hometown. That was maybe him and Nikita Koloff, maybe, were the quickest rises from complete unknown to main event status and legitimately drawing money of anybody in the 80s. And think of how many hot talents there were in the 80s. So I think more of that would have been preferable. At the same time, you could have gone on forever with all the footage and stuff that, that is available. But, and it was a true story that Angie told, that he still kept the guard job at Cobb County when he started wrestling, even when he got the Bubba gimmick.
Yeah, for how long? That's what wasn't made clear. How long did he have both?
Well, not long, because once he got started getting booked and he was on the road with us, he would have had to gone in and asked for, I need 3 weeks off. But for the, first, for like the weekend to go up and do jobs. And then when they told him, okay, come to Greenwood, South Carolina, wearing a suit. And the initial couple of weeks on TV before he, started getting booked all the time, he was still doing both. But then he just, he couldn't. I got to go to, 8 different shows next week. I can come back to work in 3 weeks for maybe a day and a half. But that's, that's a thing. And Angie talked about how, and obviously the reason why he left Crockett, and that, was next on the show, was because not only had he gotten attention and everybody knew that Hogan was looking for big opponents, but that Starrcade 87 payoff, yes, Dusty had created the gimmick and he had put him in a spot with us where we all made good money. Bubba made at least a couple of grand, because I made $2,000 for that Pittsburgh show alone. But Bubba was starting from square one. Whereas Bobby and Dennis and I we'd made money in Louisiana. We'd done okay in Dallas, but Crockett was already taking care of us. And we had started the big run with the rock and roll. So Bubba, for the first year and a half, by the time that they put him with us, then they sent him to Kansas City for a while, where the money was miserable. Then he came back to us, but then Dusty sent him to Louisiana. He was pushing him. Made him the UWF champion.
Yeah, Universal Champion.
But all those towns were down. So the first 2 years, his pay went way up and then way down and way up and then way down. And then finally with that Starrcade thing, when he got the WWF spot, that was the thing. That's when I told the story on the show here. He called me up after the first week with Hogan. Jimmy, in that voice, guess how much money I made? 12 grand last week. And that was, that was just the beginning. By the time he got into it and the merchandise, et cetera, that was Angie's comment. One of his paychecks was as much as he would have made a year as a guard in Cobb County. So, but anyway, they showed the superplex off the top of the cage. And did you notice what nobody remembers? They remember the spot, but just in a vacuum because it was so memorable. Two guys that size in those old hard rings on that blue cage doing a superplex. But the tape shows they sold it forever. Even Hogan sold it like he was dead to get it over so people would remember it. Which is the reason why nobody remembers it if it happens today, because it happens all the time and everybody gets back up. But there was not just Boss Man, but the biggest star in the wrestling business gave a move and sold it like he was dead. Gerald Briscoe is always great. He did a good job in this. But then they covered the babyface WWF run rather quickly and talked about, the level of star that he was and the talk shows and et cetera. But it's just, I guess it was so much, it kept going.
I don't know. There was a way to do it without it just being like nonstop. And then he did this, he turned babyface, but it doesn't say like any of the reasons. Like it kept moving and clips were out of order. Like it was driving me a little crazy.
Well, and that's not a drive, that's a short putt. But nevertheless, he went to WCW.
Yeah, again, the whole idea, end of 92, he's working Nails, which was a pretty big program, all things considered. They created a convict to come after the boss man. Convict beat up Vince McMahon and threw everything for a loop. But they're jobbing him out by the beginning of 93 and he's gone. They said here it was just because he could make the same amount of money in WCW and work half the dates. Could he make the same money in WCW?
Well, all of these things can be true. What they glossed over was he left, and I did talk about this in the sit downs, but again, I sat down for 3 hours to tell them how great he was. They couldn't use all of me. But Bubba, I believe I've told this story on the podcast here before. He had told me when he came to work for me in Smoky Mountain, because he left the WWF in whatever it was, early 93. He was convinced that Vince was going to go to jail for the steroid thing and that the company was going to be fucked without Vince around. And he's got the gimmick of law, order, and justice. And so that's when he quit, he went to Japan at least once. I don't know, maybe a couple of times.
That's right. He worked for Giant Baba, All Japan.
Yeah, and he came up, made some shots for me in Smoky Mountain with Kevin Sullivan. And then the WCW offer came, and that was, I don't know the exact amounts, but with the contracts they were giving out, the fact that he'd have to work half as many dates, and they were based in Atlanta for so many of the TVs when his family, he already lived there, he was from there. If you factored in the difference in expenses, he was making more money in WCW than he was as the big boss man back in the days before Vince was handing out guarantees. But the problem was it took, and I'll go into more detail on this, which I did again, cut for time, but it took him out of the picture of being a big wrestling star when he'd been a big wrestling star from 1986 under one of his two names until 1993. A main event guy pretty much all the time until, Vince phased him out. And then in WCW, they couldn't use the boss man gimmick, but instead of going back to full-fledged Big Bubba Rogers, the same gimmick, same presentation, he had been a main event guy in the same company 5 years previously, 6 years previously, whatever. They just changed. They played off the law enforcement thing. He was the boss with a fake badge, but then that was too similar to the boss man and the law enforcement thing. So then I can't remember in order of what everything was, but he was a guardian angel for fuck's sake.
Yeah, that was, I think, next, but they put him all out of order. They showed him during the Nitro period, then they showed him there. They also said that, WCW was just hiring all these WWE. This was before that. This was 93.
Yeah.
This doesn't count towards that.
But that's the thing. Whether the gimmicks were out of order or not, it didn't matter because they didn't make any sense anyway when they did it. And that's the point, is between he was Ray Traylor, he went back to Big Bubba for a while, but with a different look. He was the guardian angel. He was the boss. In that mess that was the booking of the time and the transition from that rotten era they were in to the Bischoff Attitude Monday Night Wars era, it was just a wasteland. And it took him out of being a recognizable main event star for about 4 good years there. So when he went back to the WWF, they reprised the Big Boss Man and gave him an updated look. And he was still working at a high level and he was still over, but he didn't have the momentum a lot of guys had that, because he'd been floundering that time. He wasn't as over with the people as he would have been if he'd been consistently used. And then they talked about the spot he missed at the Survivor Series, and I don't think Gerald was necessarily being overly dramatic when he said that after he missed the run-in, and something Vince was involved in directly, that his push slowed down and petered out, and they started doing all the goofy shit with him. I wonder also if some of it may have been due to the pill issue that he was starting to have because of the things we'll go into in a minute, but he got up that far. He was Vince's bodyguard. They were using him. They'd figured in the main event scene, and we should have gotten Austin and Boss Man. And then within months, he's eating dogs and stealing dead bodies.
Yeah, he was a part of the corporation when they were at their peak. And then they started putting him in embarrassing angles that they were embarrassing at the time. I know some people really liked him, but some people have come around, but they were embarrassing at the time and they're embarrassing now.
Well, some people remember their younger days fondly, but if you sat down and watched it today, you would say, oh, God damn, I liked that. But that's the thing. And it wasn't like Bubba to miss a spot. That's why I'm thinking maybe something was going on, because it wasn't, this was the last few years of his life, but talking to Undertaker in the back over their match and missing the run-in when you're involved with something with Steve Austin and Vince McMahon was probably not the best thing. And that's the point that I made in this, and I'll try to make it more strongly. It galls me that as good a performer as he was from a very early point, as nice of a guy as he was, and as hardworking as an employee, the whole 9 yards, but as good of a talent that he was under 2 different gimmicks and the record attendances he set in the whole 9 yards, the fact that so many people remember him for a couple or 3 at least of the worst moments in wrestling in the history of the Attitude Era, when everybody was watching, that disappoints me, if nothing else. Whether he got getting hung by the neck in the Hell in a Cell with the Undertaker, or stealing Al Snow's dog and feeding it to him because somebody told him about Fuji's old rib, or dragging Big Show's father's casket out of the goddamn graveyard behind a truck, whatever. That was, if some of it was our friend Mr. Russo, who we'll have a thing or two to say about later. Some of it, I think, was possibly under the new writing regime, but it was the worst part of that bullshit, shock TV, crash TV, Attitude Era nonsense. And that's what people remember. That chaps me the wrong way. And that's what Bubba had to smarten his kids up over this. And remember, there was a time in the business where a lot of guys didn't even smarten their wives up. But even in those days, you didn't smarten your kids up until they got to a certain age because you were nervous you might not be able to impress on them how important it was not to blab to their friends at recess or whatever in the third grade. But when her father, as Lacey said, was cooking guys' dogs and feeding it to them or being hung, kids were looking at her sideways and she, it was embarrassed. But, and Ray had to sit down and tell him what was going on with the business. And I said we'd talk about our friend Mr. Russo in a few minutes, but I'll bring it up now. The one comment that they had from him in this show was when they talked about them hanging the boss man by a hangman's noose in the middle of the ring in a realistic fashion. He's like, well, people get hung up with that, but bro, I'm writing television, bro. It's a television show, bro. Why does anybody get upset? And then one of the producers actually said, well, his wife and kids were there watching that. Oh, I didn't know that. Well, yeah, that's kind of rough. What the fuck? For somebody else's kids, it was fine. Just, not that particular. Anyway, I've been droning on. Any of your thoughts so far on, especially on the hanging or the dog or the corpse?
No, and of course, I don't remember who booked what when it comes to that stuff, but I told you last time, there are a lot of people who think that they're too easy on Vince Russo. They never bring up that he's the one doing the bad stuff or that it's bad specifically because he's the one being interviewed.
I'm thinking they're kind of, at this point, they've given him a rope and they're letting him tie his own hangman's noose at this point, because you really don't need to make the commentary anymore. When people just listen to him, they kind of start figuring it out.
But yeah, anyway, again, I have to get it out of my mind. This wasn't a documentary on Ray Traylor, the Big Boss Man, Big Bubba Rogers. This was Dark Side of the Ring. So, again, they rushed through everything to get to the Attitude Era. And then from there to the problems. And
yeah. And that, I don't know whether a lot of people knew this or not until this show, but before 2006, before everything that happened with Chris Benoit, Bubba, as a native of the Marietta area, knew Dr. Phil Aston, and he's the one that introduced him to Chris Benoit, or vice versa. Because the injuries, and Bubba, with whether it was that size, his family also had heart issues, but he was 6'6", even though when he started, he was 360, 370. As Bubba later, and then Big Boss Man especially, he slimmed down because he had to for his knees and his back and everything. But the way that he bumped and the way that he worked, even at, and he was a big guy at 320 or whatever, with the use of pills for a fairly extended period of time, that was a lot on his heart. But that's where I thought Lacey especially was very good there when she said it, because as we know, they had footage. Aston got brought up on charges and convicted and sent away for doing this for all kinds of celebrities, athletes, people, whatever. But Lacey said, I'd just like to ask Dr. Aston if he knew what he was doing, if he knew this stuff was going to be addictive, if he knew people were going to be hurt. And he did, but he didn't care. But again, as Nick Patrick said, so many of the guys that came through Atlanta or lived in the Atlanta area for any of the companies, so many of them are in the graveyard now. And that's the bad thing when Curt Hennig died, because Bubba was close with the Steiners. He was real good friends with Curt Hennig. And when he died, Bubba straightened up. He still had the pain issues, but for the family and just because that was kind of a wake up thing, not for a lot of guys, but for him. But then he ended up having a heart attack sitting in his chair at home. And that's another terrible story that Lacey told about. She had just learned CPR in school and had to give her dad CPR and wondered whether she'd done it right or not. And that's a lot to put up with. So this was a dark side, not so many of the dark sides, the people in them are dark. And I think, that's the thing. For it to be the dark side, the people don't have to be dark. They don't have to have just been reckless and brought it on themselves. And, Bubba was one that fit here, but he got to Hall of Fame induction in 2016. They were there. Lacey is working in mental health treatment. So it was a good program as a teaser of I'd like to see a 3-hour extended cut of everything about Ray Traylor, Big Bubba Rogers, the Big Boss Man.
You always bring up the reunion and how close it was. What do you think he would have done? I mean, he wouldn't have been at the first one because that was already booked, but...
Right. Well, see, that's the thing. We didn't know that it was going to turn out to be such a thing. When Dennis first moved back to Huntsville and went to a show and some of the guys saw him and we got his number and we called and just started talking at the same time, other people had seen that Dennis Condrey's back around. And that's how we got the first 2 booked, which were, going off top of my head, Kingsport, Tennessee was the first one. I think God damn it. Was it? Well, nevertheless, it was just me and Bobby and Dennis. And then the following week was the Ring of Honor. Gabe Sapolsky had got us all 4 with Stan together to do a thing at Ring of Honor. And we didn't know whether there was, that we didn't know that was going to be the start of a lot of regular appearances. So naturally, as the promoters and the fan fests, the Comic Cons or whoever, the independent shows were booking 3 members or 4 members of the Midnight Express, they would have loved to have had Big Bubba with us. And I mean, he didn't have to, make it a full-time gig. He could have done whatever he wanted to, but he would have been over the next following 5, 6, 7, 8 years, he would have been regularly at the Charlotte reunions or the big fan fests or whatever. People would have loved it. But it was just at the same time.
Dark Side of the Ring, Big Boss Man, and who are they featuring next week?
Next week is, people may not know the real name, but they may remember the gimmick name, but Rick Wilson was the Renegade. And he's the guy that they brought into WCW with the closest thing. It was like the similarity between Superfly Jimmy Snuka and Superfly CV Afi. It was like an Ultimate Warrior reboot.
No, they tried to pretend it was the Ultimate Warrior at first. Absolutely, they did.
Well, yeah, but then they had to kind of admit it, but they still carried on with it. But this guy apparently, as well as when we talked to Evan Husney, he had a horrible, tragic up and down story and obviously has passed away now and has gone to his great reward. So that's next week. But later on in the season, I'm also looking forward to Paul Orndorff. That's coming up. So what the rule is, Brian, here, the lesson that we've learned by this is just don't sleep on any of these programs. Just watch them all, because that way you won't miss any of the good ones. So you cannot, as the kids say, sleep on any of these shows. You got to sleep in between these shows. And Brian, what in the world is better to sleep on in between shows than a Helix sleep mattress? I ask you.
What in the world? Jim, I don't think anything. Helix is out of this world with comfort, great mattresses that we love in my home and you love in yours.
That's right. As a matter of fact, talking about out of this world, Helix has made a big deal with NASA, and they're putting these mattresses in these space stations and in these moon rockets because they're going back to the moon. So you can get the weightless mattress. The only thing that keeps it down is when you lay on it. See, this is a great way you can get extra room in your house, ladies and gentlemen. Your bedroom will be uncluttered. Every morning when you get up out of bed, your mattress floats right up to the ceiling and waits there until you're ready to go to sleep that night.
Not a real mattress.
You pull it down by the special system of pulleys that is attached.
There's no special
and you can lay, and once you're laying on it, boom, there you go.
Listen, ladies and gentlemen, that's not a real mattress that's available from Helix. It's a fun thing.
No, it's only through the government. You got to go directly through the government.
It's the kind of
National
idea
Aeronautics
you can have
and Space Administration.
If you were daydreaming, taking a day nap on your Helix sleep mattress, coming up with ideas, that's what you would come up with.
Well, as a matter of fact, they did a study, and 78% of the people that sleep on Helix mattresses found that they daydreamed in the nighttime.
There's no study that we know of. We can't talk about studies that don't exist.
I've been studying all day long. I'll tell you what, folks, because I hate to get out of bed. Since I got this Helix mattress, I do everything there. They had to hook up a tube to run all the way into the bathroom. But nevertheless, folks, all you got to do is go to helixsleep.com, HELIX sleep.com, and they're going to show you their variety of mattresses. The ones if you like to sleep firm, or if you like to sleep hard, or if you like to get soft before you go to sleep. Or the kids' mattress. I'm going to get a couple of those for Buddy and Alfred. Because that way, I've got them right there next to me, but they've got their own mattress so they can pee to their heart's content. The kids' mattress, they also come in waterproof models that turn purple whenever the kids piss so you can make fun of them over it.
They don't come in that at all. They don't.
Well, that must have been a previous prototype. But you could upgrade your home with a Helix mattress. You get one of these in there, well, it increases your home's resale value. Why, fuck the wood floors or the goddamn new paint job. Just tell your real estate agent, hey, that's a Helix there. And automatically they're going to know, well, people love to sleep and fuck on those.
That's not anything that will increase your home value. Why would that increase your home value?
Well, if somebody's going to buy your house, they're going to want to know they've got a good place to sleep and fuck.
that doesn't have anything to do with home value. You can't
argue with that.
It has to deal with home comfort.
Have you ever bought a house in your life where there was no place to sleep or fuck? I rest my case. Folks, free shipping, seamless delivery, 120-night sleep trial, limited lifetime warranty. They got a happy with Helix guarantee. If you don't get a happy ending, your first week on a Helix mattress,
they can't guarantee that.
I thought they gave you 1 week before you got a happy ending, and if you didn't get, because the loose women love to sleep on a Helix mattress because they're used to just prison bunks and things like that.
What the fuck? You know who would love Helix sleep? Andrade.
How you know? Folks, go to helixsleep.com. Don't listen to us. No, never do that. Just don't listen to us. Go to helixsleep.com/JCE. And right now, between August 3rd and the 13th, it's the early access to the Labor Day sale. You're going to be able to get 20% off. 3rd through the 13th, 20% off of any Helix sleep mattress on that fine website with all of those various features that we've talked about. And create, if there isn't a place in your home to sleep and fuck, create one with a Helix sleep mattress. I wonder if they also have helixfuck.com.
They do not. I don't know why that would be something you would wonder here at the end of the
Well, no, because that way, you remember the old Carlin line, the motel should have just had the flashing sign, sleep, fuck, sleep, fuck, sleep and fuck. So helixsleep.com, helixfuck.com.
No, that's not one of their email address. Ladies and gentlemen, let's just clarify once and for all. In a serious, that wasn't serious. In a serious
that was pretty serious.
In a serious tone. Great mattresses we love here in my home and you will love in yours. We sleep on them and we enjoy them.
What else do you do on them? Do you complete the... It's not even a trifecta. It's a daily double. Do you complete the daily double of sleeping and fucking?
HelixSleep.com.
You can't do that on the kids' mattresses unless you're dwarves. If you're a married dwarf couple,
we're right here at the end.
Well, it's just they've got a measuring thing. If you're less than 4 feet tall, you're not allowed to have sex on the mattresses.
That's not something.
But there's a loophole for dwarves.
Ladies and gentlemen,
if you're of legal age.
Oh my God, this is just impossible. HelixSleep.com for all of your normal everyday sleeping needs. HelixSleep.com / hold on, I don't have it here. I have to open it up, ladies and gentlemen.
JCE is what it is. 20% off till the 13th of August, and then you're out of luck.
Helix Sleep.
All right, well, young man, why don't we talk about what's going on in the fine world of Arcadian Vanguard programming this week?
Another fine week of programming as I lose my voice on the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network. I really am losing my voice.
Hear Brian croak. You
can, of course, hear nothing like that, but you can hear all sorts of other things on Twitter at Superpodcast, on Facebook at facebook.com/Arcadian Vanguard. Of course, each and every day, get the wrestling news. Get your wrestling news for free. The Morning Wrestling Newscast. No paywall, no clickbait, no opinion, no star ratings, just the wrestling news. TheWrestlingNews.com or wherever you find your favorite podcast. Of course, check out every week Shut Up and Wrestle with Brian Solomon, SUAWpod.com, for great classic wrestling talk. And
do they talk about GLEAT on that program?
And of course, they don't talk about GLEAT. And of course, Stick to Wrestling with John McAdam. McAdamPod.com. Hear what was happening in wrestling 40 years ago today. And of course, the 605 Super Podcast, The Mothership! I don't know if that helped or hurt my voice, but go through the archive. Hear when I sounded young. 605pod.com. Available wherever you find your favorite podcast, but all episodes are always free at 605pod.com.
When we were younger, we always sounded like Mickey Mouse on amphetamines, as Heyman once said about me. And speaking of people from my past, the Black Scorpion, Cornette, I'm from your past.
Jim. Jim, remember behind the dumpster?
Hey! She didn't sound like that. All right.
I had a fur coat.
Maybe that was the problem. They stole the fur coat from the Black Scorpion.
That was the problem.
That was the problem. All right. Anyway, an old friend of the program here, Mr. Shitstain himself, Vince Russo. We're going to close the program out with the latest comment that came out of his mouth. Have you heard about this, Brian? I saw well, it was either a tweet or it was a tweet of a quote that he said on a program or whatever, but it was a statement that came from his own chicken lips. He said, Vince Russo said that Triple H's creative is the worst creative in the history of professional wrestling.
Oh, come on. He didn't really say that. He can't really mean that, even if he said
He said that, followed up by, I don't know why he doesn't call me.
There it is. There it is.
No. What do they play when they hit a home run? Play that on the organ. He said, first of all, I didn't really mean it. I was just making a joke. First of all, Triple H's creative is the worst in professional wrestling history, coming from Vince Russo, said Mr. Pot to Mr. Kettle. Even if it ain't too good, which we have been making that point here lately on the program ourselves, when you say worst in the history of professional wrestling, you are ignoring the incredible legacy and the body of work presented by the guy that just made that statement. And then part B to this Medicare Medicare Part B, that's what Russo needs. He's my age, and he's still groveling like a Dickens street urchin I don't know why he doesn't call me. Maybe because it's been almost 30 years since you worked there and you're still trying to do the same shit. And even Jerry Springer is canceled and dead. But to quote Jackie Fargo, the gall of him. Can you believe that? Even if, I mean, Eddie Graham may have a right to say that, or Bill Watts, or a few names like that, but and is that also the right way to go about getting a job that you still apparently so desperately want when you can't understand why the guy you've just said is the worst ever at what he's doing, why he won't call you so you could fix it all?
I don't think he wants a job. Remember, a few years ago, he quit the wrestling business. He said, I'm done forever, no matter what.
And that went like all the other wrestling retirements. I'm the only one that's honored my commitment. Me and Jack Briscoe.
That's right. But his podcast sucked.
Well, but, that wasn't his bailiwick. But so to commemorate the occasion of Vinny Rue making that statement, and I'm sure that Triple H will be putting a call in immediately as soon as somebody fucking ties him down and kidnaps members of his family and forces him to. But
you said that's how he would get a job. That's not how he would get a job. Do you think he's emailed Ari Emanuel yet?
Oh, you would have to think.
That's what he does. He tries to email the person in charge who wouldn't know as much as the people on the ground about what he does. That's his move. Do you think he's emailed Ari yet?
Well, would he email Ari or would he email Nick? Or who would he think is the top of that food chain that would do him the most good while still never having actually worked with him in person to believe the horror stories?
I don't know. People who work with Mark Shapiro think he's a moron. A very successful moron, but a moron nonetheless.
I was about to say, well, then they've got something in common, but then you added successful moron and now you've taken that away.
Yeah, I don't know.
Again, he's publicly said he's written a network in the past. He's written multiple networks in the past. He's written multiple companies in the past.
Vince. He was writing to Vince.
He was writing Vince until Vince said, a good day, pal, basically. Even Vince didn't want to put up with it anymore. You would think at some point he would realize, well, maybe, just maybe, none of these people want anything to fucking do with me. And I know some of the Cornette haters out there are going to, they don't want anything to do with you either. And the feeling is mutual. I'm not asking publicly or privately. That's the fucking point. This dipshit, whenever it's convenient, he talks about how or he'll write a book about how wrestling ruined his life. He can't stand wrestling or the people in it. They're the worst kind of people. And he never should have been involved in this, except next week when he's got to do another show or continue to look for a job. Oh, but I could help the booking in this place or that place or the other place. He's a 65-year-old man that is booking for a wrestling promotion run as a side rib by actual clowns. And that's the only place that he can do his 30-year-old shtick. Gosh, I hate to say somebody's stuck in the past, but my God, again, Springer's dead, off the air. A lot of people don't want to hear about the fucking, is a girl pregnant and who's responsible? Well, we got to paternity test the whole goddamn roster. But he remains blissfully ignorant. People say ignorance is bliss. And he's a happy son of a bitch every time you see him.
I will say, though, I think they should do it. Because I would love to watch Unreal to see the writer's room when Vince Russo starts throwing his ideas out there and all these guys in their sweater vests have to deal with that.
The last time that happened, and what was it? Was it 2001 or 2002 or whatever, when they brought him back? He had one meeting with the writers and they universally told Vince McMahon they would mutiny if this person was brought there. That is the only time that I have ever heard a firsthand account from inside the WWE of where Vince McMahon apologized to members of his staff. He actually, he said, "I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I thought it would work." That was a landmark moment in Stamford, Connecticut.
What do you think that's like days later? Like, I got a gig. It's going to be great. I'm doing my thing again. Oh, the phone's ringing. Who's that?
Yeah, the phone rings. Don't answer the phone. The call is coming from inside Titan Tower. So anyway, that was the statement he made, and people took to it like you could imagine. But I thought that just as a little palate cleanser here as we end the program, since he's proclaimed that somebody else is the worst creative writer in the history of creative writing in wrestling, that we would just go over another example or two of some of the things that he who can fix this has written. Because we've been going through my old TNA agent reports, and we stopped a few weeks ago. Other things have been happening, but I got a couple more here. I thought I would just bring up at random. This is what he was doing 20 years ago. And does anybody think he's gotten any better in the last 20 years than what he was then?
He who could fix this.
He who can fix this. Let's see what he was fixing back then. TNA Impact, this is dated for February 22nd, 2007, and the next week is March 1st. That's right, because February only has 28 days. It wasn't a leap year. So at any rate, this was TNA Impact for February 22nd of 2007. Open Pyro, West and Tenay were slower and not having a cow this week. And I actually listened to them, and it was easier to hear the points. They had them doing such high energy shit that it was being lost, and they slowed down a bit. AJ Styles' entrance. AJ should never perform in baggy shirt and jeans. He looked like a frumpy high school jock. But this is when they had switched AJ heel, right? Best heel attitude promo I've seen him do ever. But he never really explained what the match was that he was talking about. Because he and Rhino were advertising they were booked in a scaffold match at the pay-per-view. Rhino climbed the scaffold. Great visuals here for the height. Rhino was passionate and the promo was good. But why was AJ surprised that the guy he's working a program with accepted his open challenge? Just a little loophole there. Then we go to Jeremy Borash with Team 3D and Sharippa. Was there a baseball player named Sharippa? Or wait a minute, I'm trying to see if
Steve Sharippa from The Sopranos
is on later on in the program. I'm trying to look for a Sharippa.
Is it Steve Sharippa from the Sopranos?
That's what I'm looking for. Maybe the next week. I know there's another Sharippa going on. Well, maybe we'll get there. But nevertheless, whatever they did, both Bubba Ray and Sharippa were very good.
Yeah, I just looked it up. It's Steve Sharippa, who was famous for playing Bobby Bacala on The Sopranos.
Okay, well, because Team 3D, well, I guess Devon may not be Italian, but Bubba's Italian from New York, and LAX had gone to the Italian restaurant and beat up his uncle, and we didn't know was his uncle until after they beat him up, blah, blah, blah. So LAX entrance, now they're a gang with the thugs, and Conan in the chair will be great if he doesn't get out until it's right. And remember, that was the problem. They didn't have Conan with LAX for a while there. They weren't making them a fearsome commodity. And then segment 2, 3D entrance with Steve Sharippa, okay, and the Goombas. Good use of a celebrity in this instance. He was good and right for the role. And they had a LAX versus Team 3D in a belting pot match where everybody was around the ring with belts to whip the guys back. But I said, could have easily done without the name. But this was a great segment.
Yeah, really.
Well, because again, even something serious, the people are going to get hurt. He's got to make it funny. Good action and whippings. Fans were into it. The finish came off great. 5.5 minutes bell to bell gave them some time to have a good all-out brawl. Hernandez could be a big talent, but needs to be training with someone 2 to 3 times a week. This was in February of 07. February of 09, when Dixie was wanting to make Hernandez Supermex the big singles babyface Latino superstar, I was still saying the same thing. But now they were trying to make him a single. He had never been put in a push position as a single, only a tag, so he was floating again. And in the months leading up to my unceremonious dismissal, I'd been working with him exclusively as his producer and was suggesting that they even foot the bill, maybe show that he's dedicated, let him donate his time, but fly him to Louisville and put him up in a fucking hotel we got a rate on and let me work with him in classes and have OVW guys work with him. And we were trying to do that when, everything else went south and they had bigger problems. But anyway, VTR package prison yard match and Mitchell injured. Father James Mitchell, of course, the manager of Abyss. They were coming up on a prison yard match thing, or they had a prison yard match or whatever with Abyss and Sting in this program. And I said, great work here, but I can't get past the father shooting in order to like this, because as you will recall, Sting had found out that Abyss had shot his father in the back. And everybody believed that. So then we go to segment 3, and Brian, I wanted to read this today because since Mr. Russo's comments about bad booking, do you remember we mentioned this a few weeks back on the show? Do you remember where the exact moment was? Because I reminded you that the Fire Russo chants began in the Impact Zone from the TNA audience.
Oh, it was one of the gimmick matches. Oh, shit. Was it Abyss?
Yes.
Was it Abyss and the man he's
It's
wrestling?
showtime.
And Sting.
And Sting in the Last Rites match.
That's right.
Okay, segment 3 of this show was Sting on his deathbed doing a promo. And I said, okay, this was shot great, had moody effects, had a cool look. Sting did a good job. But with all this pseudo-religious florid prose and deep metaphoric content, what the fuck did this sell me? Nobody is really going to die. Sting is trying to save this guy. He's going to kill him and make him live again. Because, Brian, remember, the rules of the Last Rites match were that there was a platform in the middle of the ring, and to win the match, you had to put your opponent on the platform, and he would be raised literally to heaven, up to the ceiling of the Impact Zone as far as that goes. I think probably it's still a little ways between there and heaven. And that's the way you won the match. The guy goes up, right? I swear to God. And so I wrote, so what if you get raised to the ceiling on this thing? That won't hurt, especially on the same show with a scaffold match where somebody's going to take a bump off the ceiling onto the floor.
Yeah,
this showbiz. No, go ahead.
I didn't even think about the idea that you're doing a scaffold match on the same show, so someone's going up.
Yeah, one guy's got to come down, one guy's got to go up. Which one would you rather be? Motherfucker, put me on the thing going up. And I wrote, this showbiz to realism ratio is so high, it's too implausible to engender a passionate enough response in the viewers to make them spend $40 to see these two guys fight, especially after the babyface just went over in a street fight, the prison yard match, and killed the manager. What is Sting, a sadist? Is someone taking out his religious conflicts on this angle? And by the way, I'll remind everybody that in the last rights match, in addition to the platform to raise the blah, 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 they had spooky lighting and they had candelabras like in Dracula's castle on all four
Liberace's
corners of the
castle.
ring post.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's more like, but they had them on the ring post, right? And they came up with a spot where Sting was going to do the Stinger splash to Abyss, and Abyss reached back and whacked him over the head with one of those gimmick candelabras. It was some kind of plastic or balsa wood, whatever. It wasn't really like a metal candelabra. When he hit him over the head with the fucking cheap ass thing, it stabbed him in the fucking eye. It broke and stabbed him right next to his eye, and he was bleeding hard way. And when's the last time you saw Sting bleed to begin with, right? And he came back from that match, and he was fucking freaking out, going to the mirror, look, my eye for real, because he had so much blood in it, he couldn't see whether he'd stabbed him actually in his eye. And as that match went on, that's where the people started, fire Russo, fire Russo. That's where it came from. Anyway, where are we at? Continuing with Seg 3. Rude, Eric Young, and James Storm with Miss Jackie and my God, Tracy Brooks versus VKM, the Voodoo Ken Mafia, and Lance Hoyt, who is Lance Archer. Of course, the Voodoo Ken Mafia was Road Dogg and Billy Gunn. I wrote, this was for exposure for all these guys and to further the stories. They didn't rush and got it all across in 2 minutes. 2 minute 6-man tag. Chris Daniels vignette, Don West with Andre Rison. He's a football player, right?
Sounds right.
Abyss slams him. Was not the performer Sharippa was and came off heelish and very staged. So they got a football player coming in, get more heat than the heel. Then segment 4, JC and Mike Tenay with Kurt Angle and Scott Steiner contract signing. This had a big league feel, great entrances. Don West did his best work ever. As alone, he slowed down, talked him to the ring, and told the stories. Best he's ever been. Remember, Don was still, this was 2007. He'd never done wrestling before. He was still picking things up on the job training. TNA approached this as if they believed these guys weren't going to fight here, even though everybody knew they were. But we built the tension till they weren't sure by slowing it up and sitting down. Good explosion with the table, argument, headbutt, big juice, heels getting heat, and the outshot with the bloody contract in Kurt's mouth. I think this was as hot as we could make it. You had stars here, and you had the ability for these guys to go out and be serious and create something in the middle of it, especially when it made sense. Anyway, segment 5, VTR Samoa Joe. Talking about Christian Cage and the NWA title. I hope Joe wins this because at this point, we've almost made him full of shit if he doesn't. I can't remember whether he did. And then a ladder match. Sanjay Dutt versus Austin Starr, that's Austin Aries, versus Jay Lethal versus Sin Shi, that's Low Key, versus Jerry Lynn. I'm the last one to preach for less wrestling, but no entrances for any of these guys, just made it a throwaway. No way this could follow the contract signing for star power, then they all look like job guys, the same guys that we beat and make fun of all the time, plus Jerry Lynn. And that was true. They come out of the main event guys contract signing with heat and etc. And they just throw 5 guys in the ring to have a ladder match. Don't even get entrances. Everybody looked like Ned. Jumpstart a bunch of flips. Lynn does an incredible job. The other guys work hard, but are perceived and presented as interchangeable spot guys. To break in 1.5 minutes as Bob Backlund comes to the ring to entertain the Monitor. And I love Bob was a great guy, but that's all he was there for, is to go out and do his whatever his thing was, and everybody watching the monitor just loved it. And the fans were like, ah. Segment 6, match part 2. The finish came in 2 minutes. And it was flat because the X wouldn't come off right. That's where they had to climb the ladder and pull the X down, and they could get the X off. Backlund into chicken wing Austin Starr. Why can a 55-year-old guy beat up one of the only guys in this match that might be useful? Why would this match follow the contract signing for show flow? And then they had footage at the end of the show of Angle getting stitched up because he got busted open for real by the headbutt. And it was so quick and so short at the end of the program, I almost missed it. But anyway, that was an example of the guy who can fix it.
Well, again,
Brian,
imagine if he had
questions?
3 hours. Imagine if he had the 3 hours they have now.
Oh, well, this was only one. See, this was only 1 hour.
Yeah.
That's why there was a grand total of 3.5, 9 minutes of wrestling in this show. That's amazing. Would you like one more?
One more. This would be, you said March 1st, I believe.
March 1st of 2007. Borash with Tomko and Cage. The interplay between these two is fun. That's when Tomko was starting to get over as the stooge of Cage that the people were starting to cheer for to turn on Cage. And then, of course, they swerved everybody by confirming him heel by having him stab somebody in the back, and he never got over to that level again. But nevertheless, my 2 observations are Tomko is great low-key, but needs to find his raving lunatic gear when it's called for in the ring. And sometimes I think Cage is being too weaselly or cute to be a top heel. Boy, how that has magnified. Open, pyro, etc. Steiner Angle pull apart before show looked chaotic, but I thought a little quick to see them fighting again after last week's Angle. We hadn't even really re-shown that yet, and they're fighting again. It's just, again, something lands and gets over, and then you give them so much of it, they get used to it. JC's office with Kurt Angle. I like doing promos with Kurt because he wants people to believe he means what he says. Then Chris Sabin, Austin Starr, and Alex Shelley against Sin Shi, Lethal, and Lynn. The same people we beat and make fun of every week, plus Jerry Lynn. How is this an X Division classic when we see these same guys in the same group or clump every week? At the bell to start the match, Nash comes to ringside and takes up 30 seconds asking for the Savage promo from Lethal and getting it. Heels jumpstart, 45 seconds of spots and dives, and Backlund comes to ringside for the break. So as you can see, nothing was allowed to happen for longer than a minute without being interrupted by something else. Seg 2. We're already in the heat, but Backlund's on color, so we're not paying attention anyway. Shelley, Sabin, and Lethal did a hell of a spot, and nobody on the mic mentioned a word about it. Backlund made no sense and killed the match for TV, but the guys worked hard and the crowd live was into it. Match was starting to get good when it came to a halt for no apparent reason for Starr to do the spot with Backlund. Did somebody forget something? 1, 2, 3 in 4 minutes. Would have been a good match with no Backlund or break. Backlund and Starr square off, run, and bow with Sin Shi took over 1 minute and gave a bigger push to the 55-year-old retiree than our regular talent. We followed that up with a day in the life of Eric Young.
Oh, my God.
And I said, I get this deal because I've seen it 100 times with managers, valets, babyfaces losing a stipulation, etc. But if you haven't seen it, it really doesn't work in 1 minute. The hokey music added to it killed it, even though the talent was good because it made it seem silly. TNA giggling at the heel, humiliating the babyface, neither got Rude heat, Robert Roode, neither got Rude heat nor Eric's sympathy, just made it cartoon. Then we go to an Elevation X spot. That's what Scavell match was. with Rhino. It looked awesome, but when they threw the fruit off of it, it would have been great to see the uninterrupted fall and hear the splat. They got a little fancy in some fashion. Then we go to, have you noticed there's not a lot of wrestling on the wrestling program, Brian?
Yeah.
We go to Sting in his coffin. I swear to God.
Didn't expect to hear that.
We go to Sting in the coffin. He's talking about the last rites match. There's the smoke, there's the spooky music, etc. I wrote, Sting actually says Abyss will die with a straight face. I know where all this hokey religious darkness and light horseshit is coming from, so at least I have some clue what this is all about, but I pity the viewer who doesn't. This is degenerated into creature features for 6-year-olds and is in no way pertaining to wrestling, because this is when Russo had been born again, despite, once again, the lack of complete endorsement of the first time around from anybody. He decided to get born again, and now he's sticking that in between the segments where the women are calling each other bitches and hoes and fighting in the women's room. Now wrestling's religious. And following that up, because that was so believable, Jeremy Borash interviewed Abyss where he snatched up and assaulted a crew member all of a sudden with no legal repercussions. Then Steiner made an entrance, but Kurt Angle attacked him and they had a pull apart. The guys worked hard. The people liked it. Angle jumped a line, but nobody knew. It got some heat and sold the pay-per-view match. This type of segment seems more like wrestling, even if it isn't a match, but it's just not constant fighting or acting out of a soap opera. So if this was the angle they were going to do in the show, that would have been the one. The main event guys doing something serious. But in the middle of all this other shit, we're in segment 4. We've had one match and we ain't going to have another one for a while. Segment 4, Letitia with Chris Harris. This shitty background music on these things is killing me. Letitia's total lack of acting ability, broadcasting experience, and credibility made this public access level broadcasting. Harris did fine, but he was doomed in this setting because nobody believed it. Then LAX was in New York. Alex Shelley presented this video, by the way. I wrote, Alex has personality. So LAX in New York, between bad audio in the stairway, the accents, and the screaming, I never understood one word of what was said. But at least this time I had graphics to tell me who these people were. Saying that, LAX beat up a bald Puerto Rican guy we've never heard of, and it was over in less than a minute, and nobody cared. So again, they just go on location and beat up unknown people. Then Bubba Ray comes out, punks out Shelley, stands up to Nash. LAX attack Bubba Ray like we knew they would. Ray beats up both guys, then makes them look stupid too. Shelley stops him with a nut shot. LAX tries to get heat but don't know how. Bubba Ray barely registers a slapjack shot and goes through a table. And why is Devon at Johnny Rod's bedside? It was Johnny Rod's they beat up. The bald Puerto Rican guy that we had never heard of and never been mentioned on the program, we now found out is, of course, their beloved trainer, Johnny Rod's. But Devon left Bubba to come to the show because Devon is at Johnny Rod's bedside. Are they lovers? Is he in critical condition? Why is he still at the bedside and leaving his partner phony and a lot of TV time for very little return? Seg 5. I don't know what this is, Brian. Maybe you can help me. Quote unquote, Rambuck deal. Who was Rambuck? And I wrote, the guy is really hurt, but nobody will ever believe it now. This was ludicrous. Maybe the fans can write in. Tell us what this was.
According to Google, Rambuck in TNA refers to a comedic parody movie poster nickname used for wrestler Ron Killings
There you go.
During a 2007 segment on NWA TNA Impact.
That's what, remember I said this last time, it was a few good black men. Ron Killings, R-Truth was hurt, so they were doing stupid videos to keep him on TV. But, all right. Then Borash with Samoa Joe talking about Cage at the pay-per-view. Great job, sold the pay-per-view. Then Abyss is choking another crewman, but Joe snatches him. Abyss still doesn't speak or fight. The pay-per-view point was lost to further this story, which I quit caring about because Abyss never does anything but not speak and black hole slam everybody for no apparent reason. And now they've killed his manager. Then, Brian, in case you're keeping track, we are at the bottom of segment 5 of a 6-segment show. And we've had one wrestling match which lasted 4 minutes. Now we got Travis Tomko versus Samoa Joe. Wrote good story. Tomko tried to take Joe out before the pay-per-view match with Cage, but jumpstart, rush, Joe's dive lit it up, and we go to break in 1 minute, 15 seconds. Segment 6, back up already in the heat. Joe starts his comeback after only 1 minute. Cage in for the chair shot in 1, 2, 3 in 2 minutes. Fans liked some of it because Joe was over with them, but this never got started as a match. Then Steiner in and 3 heels leave Joe laying. Abyss saves, heels run, then Abyss slams Joe. I used to be an Abyss fan, but now I don't care because what the fuck is his problem? When is he going to make up his mind or speak? We don't milk anything but this, and this is way overdue. He still never actually wins a match. Also, is there anybody else left in TNA to beat up Joe before he challenges for the world title? If he doesn't win it at this point, he should burn his boots. 8 minutes and 30 seconds, bell to bell in this show. The good stuff, Steiner and Angle, Joe's promo, and part of the 6-man. Rotten stuff, everything else. That's from the only man who can fix it. I don't know why he didn't fix this shit. But anyway, Brian, we'll come back to that more at a future time because we got SummerSlam to get ready for. We're going to be watching a lot of wrestling over the next couple of days and coming back with the drive-thru and talking about all of that.
A lot of wrestling coming up. Of course, Dark Side next week. I feel like there's more things coming up. So much coming up.
And Grayson Waller coming up like a flower.
Oh, boy.
We gotta keep an eye on Grayson Waller, SummerSlam, all these variety of things, and Dark Side and
we've had
Light Side.
Well, let me just say we've had some requests, so pretty soon, but not in the next week, just because there's a lot going on. Mid-South schedule will return. We have to get back.
Yes, we are going to return to that, and we're going to play them daggum songs that you've been promising on the drive-thru. You're going to play that funky music, white boy.
That's right.
All right. Well, otherwise, folks, thank you again for sticking with us. Those of you brave souls who did all the way till the bitter end, and boy, was it bitter. But in parting until the drive-thru and next week on The Experience, thank you, fuck you, and bye-bye, everybody.